tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Another Freedom Friday is upon us here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM, the 15th of October. We are back atop the Murchison building here in downtown Wilmington as we overlook Battleship, North Carolina. On what is set to be another beautiful day here in the Cape Fear region. Our weekly Salute to Service segment comes your way here in 25 minutes. We'll again be previewing the upcoming Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade. That'll be held here in downtown Wilmington early next month. We look forward to hearing from Mark Biddison, I believe. Jim Verdon put this together for us as we've been in contact over the last, we're always in contact one way or the other. Jim and I go way back, all the way to the origins of the nonprofit group Step Up for Soldiers, and we've become good friends over the years. And in fact, I've become good friends with his brother, who lives down in South Carolina and who opens his home to me quite often, particularly during the spring baseball season with my duties down at Coastal Carolina University. But nonetheless, Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade around the corner, and we want to highlight that and make sure this one is the best one yet. Well, another whirlwind of a day here in the office yesterday. What was it, around 4 o'clock or so? I'm heading off to the bank. Sophia is in tow in the back seat, and all of a sudden I hear, a repeat of my program coming out over the air. So immediately, a couple of text messages get fired, and TK Turbo, our engineer's like, I can't tap into the system, meaning inside our office, to figure out what's going on. There must be some sort of outage. TK, through his handheld device, his little lair that he has inside his home up in Holly Ridge, he's able to pretty much control everything right internally from our office remotely. And when you can't tap into it, well, something's gone awry. Apparently, we have some new tenants next to us that are putting it together what will soon be a private wine bar. And it's actually beautiful inside and has another great view the way we do here atop one of the tallest buildings in downtown Wilmington. And they were getting some work done technically yesterday, and apparently the technician who was here, a name that will remain nameless, apparently took us offline. And TK immediately scrambled for something, and instead of having dead air, he had to reroute some of the content coming from our studio that goes out to our radio tower. So the only thing he had in his layer back home was, the podcast version of our show. Of course, you can catch the podcast version of our show just after 10 o'clock each day on my website at joecats.com. So immediately we got on the horn and we had to call the necessary providers to try and get someone back here to fix this thing up. And, lo and behold, they were able to get somebody out here after some colorful conversations with TK and the person on the other line. And next thing you know, around 8 or so o'clock last night, the system started to reboot, sort of like Jurassic Park, as Chad described it. We needed a total reboot. And then we were back up and running and good to go through the rest of the evening. And well, at first I'm like, another technical disaster that was not of our doing. What was it? A couple of weeks ago, we had a fiber cable that ran to our tower. As you go towards Snowscut Bridge on Carolina Beach Road, a cable fiber was cut, which took us offline. That got repaired like midway through our program. The show must go on, and given that we have additional platforms in which you can consume each day, is why we promote those alternatives for you, just in case this small independently owned business has something go wrong outside of our purview. And it's like the last month, we've seen that happen not once, not twice. I think 3 times something has happened out of our control that put us offline, back on our heels, and then having to respond in the evening hours or at dark 30. That's the worst phone call you have to make if you're in this studio. The 4:30 a.m. phone call to the engineer, the programmer, and others to get them up and going. Ugh. You try and learn the ins and outs of how internally this business works, and frankly, if there are young people out there, or there are older folks out there who have young people in their lives that are maybe looking to get into media or any industry for that matter. I took these words to heart when Professor Bob Mann at Caldwell College in Caldwell, New Jersey, broke it down for me and said, man, I think you've got some talent and skills that could probably get you a job in the industry, because we all know these days you go to college, you earn the 4-year degree, and well, a majority of the time, that degree doesn't do much. Yes, it provides a little comfort in your potential employer that you have an education, but how often do you get a job in the field in which you study after spending tens of thousands of dollars to get that degree and education? The numbers are staggering when it comes to people who go outside. And that's not necessarily, things change. Maybe opportunities present themselves that take you and steer you in another direction. But it also brings into question the value of that college education, as many are questioning these days. But what he told me was when you get into the industry, or while you're honing your craft right now in school, or when you get into the professional world, ask questions. Learn things that aren't necessarily in line with the roles and the responsibilities that you hold in your job. And ultimately, that will make you a very valuable asset to that company or a competitor, and will provide so many different opportunities when you branch off from the position that you hold. So that's one thing that I have tried to do over the last several years, is learn the ins and outs of the programming, the engineering side of things. And I'll try and work through a couple of problems to see if it's something that I can fix, particularly if it's at 4:30 in the morning or late at night that might be put on my desk, or before I have to make that call. And now that would be some encouraging words for all young people. And I know the mindset these days, this is my job, these are my roles and responsibilities, and this is all I'm going to do. Don't ask me to go out and work later or do something that, I'm not in line as required under my contract or, my responsibilities doing this. My advice would be, while you're young, try and experience as much as possible, learn as much as possible. Don't just be the screwdriver. Understand how to use the whole toolbox. And then when things present themselves, you will have, a step ahead from maybe those that you're competing with for that next position. We're 15 minutes past the hour. Of course, it is a Freedom Friday here on the Big Talker FM. As I mentioned at the top, our weekly Salute to Service segment coming your way here in about 20 minutes. Chad Adams also in the lineup today, as always, inside this 8 o'clock block, our second hour on Fridays. With early voting underway and an opportunity to get to know Wilmington City Council members and others who are running for elected office, Our friend Cameron Moore with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association has lined up another conversation with us here this morning with longtime city council member. His name is Charlie Rivenbark. Cameron will push him as far as issues related to growth, construction, and the building industry. I have some thoughts on the outside of that as it relates to the heat Councilman Rivenbark felt last year from members of his own council, members of the colleagues on the council, as it pertains to some of the social issues that bubbled up to the surface, which led us to the Black Lives Do Matter sign along 3rd Street there, and ultimately the pulling down of the 2 statues here in downtown Wilmington, the Confederate statues. Charlie had lent some thoughts, had received some pushback as a result of that, and we'll get some of his thoughts on what that situation has been like to sort of navigate the rough seas that come with being a council member. And Charlie has been one of the longest serving council members, if not the longest, on this current council. So we'll talk a little bit about his experience and why we should continue to put faith in him to guide our city in a positive direction. He'll be with us, also a part of our Construction Connection segment that will come your way in about 1 hour from now. And to round it out, pinch hitting for Yael Osowski because of, the Osowskis added another person to their family tree this week. The birth of their second daughter. David Clement will be filling in from north of the border as our friends from the Consumer Choice Center round out our broadcast week every Friday just after 9:30. "18 minutes past the hour. It's a Freedom Friday here on the Big Talker FM. As we have highlighted this week, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson and some of the things that he has said in the past, and defending those comments this week as he's become national news with that video surfacing from 4 months ago, talking about the material that's been introduced in our public schools and calling that material filth. And how those sorts of comments, based on the fact that he is probably the most outgoing, well-known, and polarizing figure within the Republican Party these days here in the state of North Carolina, and maybe anywhere around the country from what I can gather outside of Orange Man Bad. Well, yesterday, or make it Wednesday, Governor Cooper participated in a bill signing ceremony and was asked about the lieutenant governor. And he told us in his ho-hum way that it would be appropriate for the lieutenant governor to resign. Of course, Republicans in the state have stood by Mark Robinson, who has focused on several books that he has showcased in the multiple statements he has released in the last week that included graphic depictions of sex acts between men. And he said, listen, don't care what you do inside your home. My job is to protect everyone's constitutional rights, no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you sleep with. But maybe we should be pumping the brakes and honestly looking at whether or not we should be introducing this sort of material to our elementary school students and within our schools. And apparently, that has garnered a lot of pushback from those on the left. And when we get back, I'll tell you, what the latest Democrat has said in comparing Mark Robinson to a 19th century lynching advocate, a guy by the name of Pitchfork Ben Tillman. This is sort of par for the course from this progressive side of the Democrat Party when we hear a black man, a black Republican, speak out against, some of the ridiculousness that we see here coming from the left, particularly when it comes to our children's education. Also, President Biden, and some news from Washington, has a grand plan on how to get a handle on some of the overrun facilities at our southern border, housing tens of thousands of migrants. Stay tuned for that bold plan that's being discussed up in Washington amongst White House officials and our commander-in-chief. We're 21 minutes past the hour on this Freedom Friday. Welcome on into the broadcast. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535.
In this corner, bugs. Every creepy, crawly pest that lurks in your home. And in this corner, bug-no pest and termite control. That's Mr. Bug-no to you, pal. If you have unwanted pests, let Bug-no Pest and Termite Control take the fight to them. Bug-no Pest and Termite Control is a family-owned and operated business, fully licensed and insured, and can handle all of your residential and commercial pest and termite control needs. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com. Call 910-367-2501 to give bugs a knockout.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best: work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
Tune in on Friday mornings to hear The Construction Connection, a collaborative effort between Joe Catanacci with the Big Talker FM and Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. You start the conversation and we bring you the answers as we take a regional, in-depth look at growth-related topics and issues centered around the residential and commercial development and building industry. The Construction Connection, Friday mornings on the Big Talker FM.
Mic check, mic check. It's the Iowa Losowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catanacci show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Pretty amazing when you try and break down the ways in which, the political class acts when someone goes against the grain. And as we've highlighted this week, the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is one of those guys that goes against the grain, just tries to call it like he sees it. In fact, we had a local member of the NAACP on the program earlier this week defending the Lieutenant Governor's right to, speak freely under, what is known as the First Amendment. And told us that it's a very sad time in commentary when our elected officials and others can't say what they feel in fear of retribution or in fear of being called to resign. And ultimately, you, me, and we as Americans will have the final say at the ballot box as to whether or not we want somebody like Mark Robinson or anyone else to serve in elected capacity. Well, following the Lieutenant Governor's statements this week, Democrats are now firing back. They just won't stop as Democratic House member of the North Carolina General Assembly, Kelly Alexander, is comparing the Lieutenant Governor's conduct to a man by the name of Pitchfork Ben Tillman. Way back in the day, Pitchfork Tillman spoke frequently of lynching black people and ensuring that they never achieve political power. This, of course, is common for what we've seen here in the state of North Carolina when we have some even within the Democrat Party deciding that they were going to vote what they think is more representative of their constituency rather than just falling on the party line. The latest string of elitist attacks against black people, frankly, who don't toe the hyper-liberal party line. We can recall upon the Lieutenant Governor's election, and then after being sworn into office, wasn't too long ago, a major news outlet in Raleigh published a political cartoon depicting the Lieutenant Governor as a KKK member. Of course, we know that the hyper-liberal platform is largely set by upper-class white liberals with Ivy League educations. When Mark Robinson gave voice to parents concerned about school curriculum, well, WRAL published a cartoon showing him in KKK garb. When black Democrats dared to vote against Governor Roy Cooper, his allies plastered their faces on a website called Disloyal Dems. When a former state senator known as Joel Ford out in the Charlotte area sponsored a voter ID bill, a policy supported by a large majority of voters in North Carolina, including black voters, social justice organizations labeled him as a prop. As those within the Democrat Party try to figure out how to maintain their control over traditional Democrat voters, we thought we would just once again give you a list, line by line, as to how the party's elite posture and then attack those who don't fall in line. And maybe, just maybe, folks are beginning to wake up. We saw it, in the 2020 presidential election. A guy by the name of Donald J. Trump secured more votes from minorities than any other Republican in the modern era of presidential politics. Will the GOP be able to build off that in the future cycles that come up, beginning with the midterms of 2022? We shall see. We've hit the bottom of the hour. When we get back, our weekly Freedom Friday segment, as we salute to service, the men and women of our armed forces. Another preview, of course, of the upcoming Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade. That's straight ahead here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Though his mind is not for him, don't put him down as arrogant. His reserve a quiet defense, writing out the day's events.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWY News. An advisory panel to the Food and Drug Administration will today consider whether a booster shot of Johnson & Johnson is needed for those who received the single-dose vaccine. Yesterday, that same panel backed the Moderna booster for high-risk and older adults. The next step for Moderna, an FDA authorization, which would be followed by a CDC vote. The shots could start being given out as early as a week from today. New details this morning about former President Bill Clinton. He was admitted to an intensive care unit in a California hospital for a urinary tract infection that spread to his bloodstream. Clinton's doctors say the former president was put into the ICU for privacy and safety, not because he needs intensive care. Doctors say Clinton is in good spirits, talking to family and staff, and has been up and walking. He should be released soon. Back in the Cape Fear, detectives with the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office Special Crimes Unit arresting a supply man on multiple counts of sexual offenses against a child. 54-year-old Billy Joe Gore is charged with 8 counts of statutory rape of a child and first-degree rape of a child, among other sexually related charges. He's being held in the Brunswick County Detention Facility under a $1 million bond. Looking for work? Belk will be hosting a job hiring event tomorrow at both Wilmington locations from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Charlotte-based company plans to hire more than 5,000 full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees to fill sales, beauty, and operational positions. And at Curie Beach, a woman found a woolly mammoth fossil. Becky Wynn was walking in the sand in Curie Beach when she spotted the rare item about 6 feet from the ocean. She loves looking for unique shells and fossils that wash up. She says fossils have been hard to find this year and that Wednesday was her lucky day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be a bit on the warm side today. If you're a fan of those warm temperatures, they stick around as we head into the first half of this weekend. Today, we're expecting mostly sunny skies and temperatures flirting with some record highs, getting into the middle and upper 80s inland of the coast. The record high for Wilmington is 88 degrees today. And then we stay fairly quiet weather-wise tonight. Good weather for high school football as our temperatures drop down into the middle and upper 60s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
I got the call to leave today. My team and I are gone away. Where to, how long? Well, that's a need to know. You can bet on us, 'cause we're good to go. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and
Our weekly Salute to Service segment this morning here on the Big Talker FM. Every Friday, we highlight the men and women who serve our country through our armed forces. And we want to take some time again this week to showcase and promote the upcoming Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade. The Veterans Day Boat Parade at Wrightsville Beach set sail at noon on November 5th inside Masonboro Inlet with the Veterans Day Parade scheduled for downtown Wilmington. On the 6th of next month, Mark Binnison and Jim Ware are with us here this morning in studio, and it's a pleasure, fellas, that you found your way into Fort Knox here today. And maybe we should just, throw Jim under the bus for a moment, because all he had to do was look through his text messages, and we would have quickly found out that I gave him the access code for you to enter, more than 3 minutes before we jumped on the air. So we'll throw Jim under the bus for just a moment, but
Sure.
He works hard,
He does.
on this parade, as well as, along with you fellas as well, and the New Hanover County Veterans Council. So, as we picked up the conversation from last week, let's start with the Veterans Day Boat Parade and maybe some details as far as how people can get involved, or anything that you're looking for, as far as contributions to what will be a great weekend coming up on the 5th and the 6th of next month.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, Jim does do a great job, so we're not going to beat him up too bad. The boat parade, that's new this year, so that's starting at noon at the Coast Guard Station at Wrightsville Beach. And it's open to anybody. Decorate your boat, patriotic colors, come down, run the route. The route is on our website so that you can get a map, know where you're going. Going to go past the bridge tender eventually, and they're going to have a little announcement ceremony there. And we're looking for veterans who want to ride on a boat. So if they're interested, go to the website, sign up. Pretty easy.
Jim, as we bring you into the conversation, what role have you played in all this, and how can and why should people be interested in coming down on the 5th or the 6th to partake in this annual parade that has brought thousands of people here to downtown Wilmington, not only from this region but from all over the country over the last number of years?
Yeah, we're pretty excited about the new boat parade edition this year, because Blair Poteet just came to us and said, "Hey, we want to do a boat parade, recognize veterans. What can we do? How can we do it?" And the parade committee said, "Hey, we can embrace that and help you out there." So what we've been doing is trying to get the word out about it, so that boat captains can get their boats decorated and ready to go. And we've also asked people if they can take veterans aboard, make accommodations for them so they can participate in the parade as well. We're excited to have this happen.
Mark, when you start to assemble how this parade line will, I'm always interested in the logistics of things. And these days we're talking a lot about logistics, things like supply chains and all that sort of stuff. So I'm always interested in learning, how the sausage is made and how you're able to piece together, the dozens upon dozens of participants in the parade route that will be along 3rd Street this year, because it's gotten so big over the last couple of years.
Yes.
I did love the cozy little way that it was held along Front Street, because it's very tight quartered, and
Yes.
you really get that feel. But it's gotten so big that you had to move it to 3rd Street.
Yes.
So you're playing to the majors now. You were down in the minors, and now you're in the major leagues. When it comes to holding parades in downtown Wilmington,
Yes.
What's that all like when you're able to start to piece this all together?
A challenge. I think that's the best word that I can think of. It is a challenge, and we're we have almost 90 groups in the parade, and so we try to stretch out the bands. There's 14 marching bands, so you got to spread them out a little bit and put some people in between them. And then, of course, you don't want motorcycles beside horses, and so there's a lot of there's a lot of work that goes into it. We've got a good group that helps with that lineup, and that lineup is now done, such as it is, and we're going with it. Yeah, looks good.
And like you said, 14 marching bands, and I know a lot of the area high schools participate in this, and you
That's
also
right.
have sort of these headliner bands that have come in from all over the region, meaning the southern part of the United States. A couple years back, we had the band from A&T
Yes.
come down, and they put on a great performance, not
Fantastic.
only along the parade route, but then at the end over by the Hannah Block USO building. Who were you able to corral this time around to perform for us as part of this Veterans Day salute?
Yes, well, of course we've got lots of high school bands, local high school bands, and they're the meat of it. It's great. But this year we got the University of North Georgia. They're coming. That's a pretty good trip for them. And of course the Citadel, That's a huge band for us. But it is a military parade. It is for veterans. So we've got the Marine Corps band out of Cherry Point. We've got the Army band out of Charlotte, the Navy band out of Norfolk. It's just a great day. The Wilmington Pipe and Drum. It's going to be a big day for bands. If you like bands and marching music, come out.
Jim, each year you have sort of a theme or a specific group of veterans who help or who we recognize on top of all the members of the armed forces that'll be participating. Who are we paying special attention to this year?
Yeah, Joe, this year it's going to be we're naming the Grand Marshals for the parade will be women in the military, active duty, reservists, and veterans, of course. And also, we're looking at the women who served on the home front, and as part of that, recognizing the Rosie the Riveters who helped keep this country going while men were at war.
Well, and with that, I know there were some solicitations out there to try and find some lovely ladies who would do and play that role as part of the theme. Have you been able to find those the number of people that you would like to participate in that?
Well, certainly not the number of people, but they're getting pretty old. They would be in their late 90s, and we did actually find one lady locally that was an actual Rosie the Riveter, but she's just not physically able to participate. But we have a Rosie the Riveter impersonator through our connections with the USO, and so she'll be in the parade riding on the BB-55 replica battleship, which will be in the parade. And then after the parade at Riverfront Park, the program continues, and she'll put on a show on the stage down there.
One of the things that I always enjoy reading, not only about history and specifically history to this area when it comes to wartime. Obviously, a World War II heritage city, as announced last year during a ceremony that involved the President of the United States right there at the foot of the battleship across the way, was to learn more about the Women Air Force Service Pilots program known as the WASPs. And they played a role in our area during World War II as well. And to to understand the history and the contributions that all Americans made, no matter what you look like, where you come from, and how that was put together, is very different these days. To, I think, introduce this, particularly to our young people, to get a better understanding of what real sacrifice looks like in a time of turbulence and turmoil with evil around the world trying to rear their head and ultimately make their way here eventually, and for men and women to put everything on hold in order for the betterment of the world is something that needs to be highlighted, and I think reinforced on a daily basis, and not just through this Veterans Day parade, but a good opportune time to bring young people out to showcase just how much sacrifice has been given to give us what we are able to enjoy these days, even as tough as it may be in our society.
Right, and even up through the Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans that are out there, and we want to support them as well. As a Vietnam veteran, we I understand how coming home is different. And, we want to get them in there. We want to get them in the parade as well, let them know that the public, that the society here is for them.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of hurdles and challenges in the years ahead as some of these conflicts over in the Middle East come to a close, and as we've been dealing with for the last 20 years, how we can help make it as smooth as possible, this transition for the men and women who are coming home after serving so much time overseas.
Yeah, we're anxious to have them, and I'd like to add that we have a new color guard this year for Native American women who are also veterans, are going to be performing a color guard ceremony during the parade.
That's just part of this year's Southeast Veterans Day Parade. It's set for November 6th at 11 a.m. Here in historic downtown Wilmington on 3rd Street. The parade route begins over by the Cape Fear Community College downtown campus and rolls right past City Hall. And then afterwards, there will be a big party down at the Riverfront Park. I know that I saw a story just the other day. Still looking for some vendors or folks that may be interested in showcasing their business or helping support one way or the other.
Yeah, we've got several already lined up and more that have responded. That's going to turn out to be a really interesting event. The 208th Army Band is going to play. We have the Choral Society, who's now going to come down, 75 members, and sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
And that'll be taking place right after the
Directly
parade
after.
wraps up over on Riverfront Park. So wear your walking shoes, and
right.
should be a great day. Weather-wise, maybe a little bit on the cooler side, but not as cool and cold as it was the first day of the Veterans Day Parade. I remember it was freezing out here.
It was terrible
for early November. Not used to that sort of stuff.
No.
It should be beautiful. The weather forecast looks great, and should be a great day. Coming up. In early November, the 6th of November, historic downtown Wilmington, the annual Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade. The 5th, the boat parade gets underway down on Wrightsville Beach. Fellas, you got anything else out there that you want to spread the word before we part ways here this morning?
Yeah, I just want to say more about the after parade event that we're having over at Live Oak Pavilion. Cy Cantwell has organized that for us, and we've invited people to come and offer information to veterans. Set up for free with tents or tables so they can get information out to the veterans who may need some help with something, housing, whatever. And we also will be taking up a food collection there to help veterans who have difficulties getting enough to eat.
If you want to find out more information about how you can get involved or more information on your attendance to the Southeast North Carolina Veterans Day Parade, just go to their website at sencveteransparade.com. Jim Ware, Mark Biddison, helping put together this annual parade. Last year we had to take a hiatus, so I know we'll be back bigger, better, faster, and stronger this year, fellas. And a lot of time gets put into it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your help.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for taking this time, a lot of time out of your day and the weeks and the months to make sure that, again, we knock this thing out of the park. 14 different marching bands will be involved, a lot of local contributions and folks coming from all over the southeastern part of the country. 12 minutes in front of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. Again, sencveteransparade.com if you want to learn more about this year's annual parade, highlighting the men and women of our armed forces as we move into a period where we recognize veterans on Veterans Day. The big boat parade on Wrightsville Beach. It should be a fun time as well. sencveteransparade.com.
I got the call to leave today. My team and I are gone away. Where to, how long? Well, that's a need to know. You can bet on us, 'cause we're good to go. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, American through and through. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, or from high above. I'm a patriot. It's tough at home, but they know the drill. We've been doing it for years. Goodbyes at the terminal gate, little faces washed with tears. Well, it's plain to see it's my family. They pay a price too, and it shows. It's the fear in their eyes, it's my baby's cries, praying that I come back home. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot, American through and through. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, or from high above, 'cause I'm a patriot. Folks always ask me how it feels defending my country. I'm proud to fight for the stars and stripes, 'cause freedom isn't free. Not will I live or will I die, but will I let my brothers down? Can I live with what I've seen and done? Will I even be around? It's hard to see and it's killing me, but the price I can't let show. It's a pain in my eyes, it's my alibis. I wonder if I come back home. I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot. American, tried and true. And I'll fight for this land I love, from the sea, the ground, or from high above, 'cause I'm a patriot. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm a patriot. Damn right my heart beats true. I'm a patriot.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Hear Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
I'm an HVAC technician, summer's most popular person. To say my job is stable is an understatement. Every home has an air conditioning and heating unit, so I will always be needed. The best part? I make great money in a career I love. I went to CFCC and got hands-on practical training and quickly got a job. Knowing I will always have a good-paying job means a lot to me. I got my start at CFCC, and you can too. Make it happen. Make it CFCC. Visit cfcc.edu/HVAC and get started today.
Hey, this is Mark Markley with Recovering Hope. We're going to continue with our diversion into prevention and alternative treatments for the Wuhan flu that you don't hear anywhere else. We'll continue to speak with a variety of professionals and others with personal experience. We'll share the truth, reduce your fears, and bring you hope. So please tune in right here on the Big Talker every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Recovering Hope.
This ain't a song for the broken hearted.
All right, as we head up to the top of the hour here on the Big Talker FM, pardon me. Beautiful morning here around the southeastern part of North Carolina. Chad Adams going to join us here in about 10 minutes. We'll also hear from Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark in the next hour as well. 910-299-7535 if you want to jump in between now and the top of the hour. We mentioned earlier in the program how Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson continues to face pushback from those on the left based on comments he made months ago and has since defended those comments on multiple occasions. Laying out what, he describes as filth when it comes to some of the reading material that's being introduced into the schools, particularly, at the elementary school level. Nationally, we've had plenty of news this week, on inflation, the supply chain, and apparently, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, he has been on paternity leave for the last 2 months, has taken paid leave. Our transportation secretary, as the supply chains have come to gridlock. And I think Andrew Donaldson yesterday laid it out about as good as anyone when it comes to, of course, what we've seen, the rise in price for all consumer goods and the massive amounts of cargo ships that have been anchored off of major ports, particularly out on the West Coast. What led to that, as he documented, goes back into the archives and finds multiple conversations that we had some 2 years ago about, a crunch that was on the horizon. And, of course, magnified with the COVID shutdown. Literally, he did the research, did the work and the homework that, I wasn't ready for. He comes back at specific dates and times in which we had interviewed folks within transportation and logistics showcasing this problem. COVID comes along, the Band-Aid gets ripped off, and look where we're at. Well, the Biden administration, on some other news that has kind of surfaced and then gets thrown under the rug for a little while, resurfaces and then thrown under the rug for a little while. That's, of course, the situation at our southern border. Well, the Biden administration apparently has a plan to help provide some relief to the facilities along the southern border that have been overrun with thousands of migrants who illegally crossed into the country and have been apprehended over the past year. And you want to know the big plan that the Biden administration is discussing right now at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Well, the Biden administration is preparing to revive a Trump-era border policy that forces migrants to stay in Mexico until their U.S. immigration court date. Of course, we all know the theatrics and the drama of those on the left when there were conversations along the southern border during the Trump administration, whether it be with the wall, the condition of these Obama-era facilities. We saw all the theatrics and the drama, the news headlines, and, the criticisms. And now, what do you know? Well, the Biden administration preparing to revive a Trump-era border policy. And now they have to convince Mexico that, we need to re-implement it for the sake of the facilities and the Border Patrol agents who are overworked, understaffed, and dealing with a massive influx of people that we're having a real hard time dealing with. Can't make this stuff up, folks. It's amazing. Biden administration preparing to revive a Trump-era border policy. 910-299-7535 is our number. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
When the left, progressives, leftists, Marxists, whatever you want to call them, every time they complain about somebody on the right, all I do is remember the Kavanaugh standard and all the crap they put that guy through with no evidence, with even the person that claimed all this couldn't get anybody on her side. So why is there still a Northam? Why is there still the guy under Northam who evidently had at least a sexual assault? I mean, now, look, don't get me wrong. Innocent until proven guilty. That's always been my standard. But I'm using their standards. Why was Cuomo there for so long? Why is Biden in office? Didn't he actually work and have knowledge of being around somebody, have evidence of being around somebody that claims that he groped her or something? Why is he there? So I'm not doing a whataboutism. That's what they call it. I'm doing I'm making you look at your own hypocrisy-ism because that's what's going on. I mean, I want to fix the problems too. But if it's just going to all be pointing one way, you're just wasting your time. They're wasting their time because, I don't think Mark Robinson did anything wrong. And if there's anybody willing to defend those pictures, and I don't care if it's two heterosexual people, homosexual people, whatever, if they're willing to defend it, those people are sick.
And I think, that's where many people find themselves with that sort of position. Once you're able to get away from the headlines, get away from, the criticisms and the pushback, the buzzwords, and listen into what the lieutenant governor is saying, his actual words in its entirety, along with, the graphic images that he had, parked alongside him while he was saying it. Listen, I consider this filth. It should not be reading material within our schools. It's as simple as that. Our elementary school students, and I get it, kids these days are and have access to all sorts of things. Okay, well, that's elsewhere. We're talking about inside, the public school system. Yet we can't say a Pledge of Allegiance. Heaven forbid. Chad Adams joins us next.
Keeping Southport informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Priority.
That's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. The Texas abortion law continues to hold despite ongoing attempts by the Biden administration to have the court strike it down. For a third time, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has allowed the so-called Heartbeat Act to remain in force. He is said to be on the mend and in good spirits. Former President Clinton hospitalized in California, being treated for sepsis at UCI Medical Center in Orange County. The Miami City Commission voting to fire Police Chief Art Acevedo. On the job for only 6 months, Acevedo had a contentious relationship with city leaders as well as with some in the police department. Wall Street Dow futures up 164 points. NASDAQ futures 42 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
Angie's List is now Angie, and caring for your home just got easier. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or a dream remodel, Angie makes it easy to see reviews, compare quotes, and connect with top local pros who can get the job done right. Plus, you can see upfront pricing and instantly book hundreds of projects. No phone tag, just the work you need done at a time that works for you. Angie's got your to-do list covered from start to finish. Book your next home project today at Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
South African security forces had to be called in to rescue 2 cabinet ministers held hostage by apartheid-fighting war vets.
The Liberation Struggle war veterans are demanding a one-off payment of $280,000, housing and medical insurance for their families. They met with Minister in the Presidency Mondli Ngungubele, Defense Minister Thandi Modise and her deputy Thabang Makwetla to negotiate their demands at a hotel in the capital Pretoria last night. The government officials were held hostage after talks collapsed. More than 50 people were arrested after attempts to negotiate the release of the hostages failed, and the special task force had to be called in.
That's BBC's Namsa Maseko. At least 7 people killed, over a dozen wounded in an explosion at a Shiite mosque in southern Afghanistan during Friday prayers. The explosion came a week after a bombing claimed by a local ISIS affiliate killed 46 people. Townhall.com. The hapless carjackers who just might want to find another line of work.
Authorities in Virginia say a botched carjacking led to a high-speed, wrong-way chase on Interstate 95. The Freelance Star reports Stafford Sheriff's Major Sean Kimmets says the men tried to take an Anytime Fitness patron's car Tuesday. Witnesses say the patron is trained in martial arts and fought back. One man got the car key but didn't know how to drive a manual transmission vehicle. Kimmett says the men fled in their own car onto I-95 at speeds just under 100 miles an hour. The car ended up going the wrong way in the HOV lanes before the men stopped and ran. A police dog found the men and 2 surrendered. Kimmett says the dog captured the 3rd man who ran. Keith Peters reporting.
And watching Wall Street this morning, stock futures pointing to a higher open. The Dow futures up 168 points. S&P futures ahead 13 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
All right, as we head into the second hour of our show here this morning, various ways in which you can tune in each day, of course, at 106.7 FM through our website, bigtalkerfm.com. Video portion of the program up and running today by subscribing to our YouTube channel and on Facebook at Big Talker 106.7 FM. Chad Adams joins us each and every Friday inside this 8 o'clock block. Chad, it's a pleasure as always, my friend. I hope you've had a great week. Good morning, sir.
It has been a busy one.
Hey, with that said, we had a caller just before the break, and we were just highlighting the controversy involving Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. I don't know if you want to call it a stirred-up controversy. I guess depending on how you look at the materials being introduced to our school-aged kids, particularly within our elementary schools, and kind of a soft core sort of porn, as some are labeling it as, and how his words are able to get twisted and turned into where we're at now. Yet when the other side of the political aisle, makes it similar sorts of comments or comments that can be taken out of context. Like, I don't know how this can be taken out of context. Let's go to a gas station or a restaurant. If you see someone you disagree with, let's harass them to the point where they have to leave or exit the building because of the swarm of people coming around and getting in the face of them and their families. Yet that sort of behavior is okay in this way of life. But when the lieutenant governor speaks his mind, all hell breaks loose, and he needs to resign from office.
Well, cancel culture only flows in one direction, right? It's kind of like the Mississippi River, Except with the exception of an earthquake, the Mississippi River runs in one direction, and so that's the way cancel culture works. If you say something that's disagreeable, now remember, you have a right to believe if you want to believe the Earth is flat, you have a God-given, creator-level right to believe that. You have a right to say a lot of things. And the cancel culture doesn't, this is they talk about tolerance and unity, and we've said it 1,000 times on the show. The left does not have tolerance. The left does not have unity. The left has obedience, tyranny. You need to conform. You need to be a certain way, and they're indignant about it. It's not like it's a debatable point to them. There's an indignation about the way the left feels. And Mark Robinson said some things in church, which are his beliefs. And the cancel culture wants him to resign. But meanwhile, just north of us in Virginia, Governor Blackface, he gets, extolled the virtues of him. He's on the left, and he got dressed up in blackface when he was in college. That's okay. Kavanaugh, who's going to the Supreme Court, during those testimonies, stuff he allegedly wrote in the margins of a yearbook, and that was grounds to just destroy his life. And that's what, and even Dave Chappelle, now I don't know if you've watched his Netflix special or not, but if you have, you'll notice that it's not really an attack on anything transgender, LGBTQ. But Chappelle has a history of picking on all of society, black, white, yellow, brown, sexual preference, everything. I mean, if you saw his stuff, it is very much. There are no sacred cows, and yet the LGBTQ, the transgender community in particular, has zero tolerance for Chappelle, who, by the way, if you listen to these people, clearly didn't listen to the show, and a lot of the show is about how the transgender community has accused him and accused him of punching down on them for a decade about stuff he never said. It was an article that was over 2 decades old now. And so, this thing with Mark Robinson, to his credit, I think we've reached a point that people on the right will start saying, I'm not going to be canceled by you. I'm not backing down. And to Netflix's CEO's credit, they're not backing down from Chappelle. They're like, you know what? We're keeping him. You can say what you want. But I think cancel culture has lit the world on fire a little too much. And those books do exist. Even in Brunswick County, there's 2 copies. I think I heard last night of the list, there's only 2 copies in the public library that has to do with a 4th grader questioning sexual identity called George. But the culture of lack of time, they've been out to get Mark Robinson because he is a single huge threat to the political right. You can disagree with him. I don't agree with everything he says. But the guy is not backing down from being kicked around. He's not going to back down. I think more people on the right need to stiffen up and say, I'm not taking this crap from you guys. You guys are intolerant children. And I am not put on this earth as an American to kowtow to immature, self-entitled children that were never told no in the candy aisle. So I'm done. I'm done with that. And that's the way we need to start standing up. That doesn't mean we don't need to be tolerant. We are. I think the right's very tolerant. Big tent. We really are a party of big tent. We tolerate a lot of different opinions. And you can look at the disagreements between Republicans on Trump even and see that. But the left has zero tolerance for this kind of stuff. And it's a problem.
Well, and listing specific examples outside of the lieutenant governor, the cancel culture, knows no political affiliation. If you do buck, the trend and don't follow that company line, I mean, look at the state senator from up in Greensboro who voted, his constituency with that Born Alive bill a couple of years ago. You look at the former state senator out in the Charlotte area, Joel Ford, who supported, voter ID, and how quickly, that progressive side of the Democrat Party, they use that R word a lot when referring to Republicans, and I mean the racist word. Yet when they say, and they look at members of their own political affiliation who don't always line up on certain issues, and look at how they are treated. I mean, it's just this double standard. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's monolithic. I mean, Kristen Sinema being followed into a bathroom, the way Joe Manchin, he's got a boat that he lives on, and all these protesters, paddle up to his boat and start screaming and yelling and stuff like that. It's an extremely intolerant, disrespectful group of rabid animals. And they are many times they are paid protesters. They are paid to go do these things. There are groups out there. When HB2 was going down in North Carolina, people were being paid from all over the country to come because the left knows that when they lose something, and they weren't going to lose anything, it was just something being ratified that was saying, hey, I don't want, certain people to go in my bathroom with my 14-year-old little girl. I don't want that. So the left, it will oppose everything violently if it must. I mean, the protests last year were burning cities. I mean, you had a group of leftists in Seattle that they basically seceded from the Union, took over territory in a town, public buildings, burned buildings, killed people. And have you heard anything about prosecutions for that? Has anyone been prosecuted? This is the kind of the leftist, because the left kind of sympathizes with that, right? The autonomous zone. Oh, this is pushing back against whatever. The left is not tolerant for that. But if that group had been a bunch of right-leaning Trump supporters that had done that, it would have been civil war. It would have been an active civil war, and they would have prosecuted them to the ends of the earth, destroyed their careers, gone after their family members. It would have been they have zero tolerance for anyone who disagrees with them. And it's a problem. It's a serious problem. On your show, my show when I was on, and our station, we tolerate a lot. We want people to hear a wide variety of viewpoints. The left does not.
And with that said, you bring up HB2 because I saw this week, a colleague that we follow probably mutually, up in Raleigh, kind of an establishment Republican, maybe I would describe him as, says, well, why are Republicans, going all in on their support for Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson? Haven't we learned our lesson yet from HB2? Maybe we should not, repeat that same history, given that, well, in his mind, Roy Cooper is here for all intents and purposes because of the HB2 debate that started up and maybe took votes away from Pat McCrory and his reelection bid, and that we should be hesitant that we go all in on these cultural and social issues because Republicans don't necessarily always fare well when we get into this arena. I would say that I wholeheartedly maybe disagree with that, given the approach by Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. He's fighting back. He's pushing back, unlike maybe Pat McCrory did during that run with HB2 garnering all this national attention.
Well, McCrory certainly didn't handle it very well. I mean, he didn't want, for those who are familiar with what was going on inside, McCrory didn't want HB2 to come along. I mean, that was the Christian right pushed that very hard. Many of us on the right were saying, hey, this is a Charlotte issue. If you remember, it was that Charlotte had said these people could go into the Y bathrooms and showers, and they're the ones who passed a local ordinance that was getting a lot of pushback, but there were people on the Christian right that wanted HB2 written. They wanted to be ratified, and they were warned there was going to be this pushback. It got passed. McCrory was put in an untenable position to ratify that with his signature or veto it, in which it would have gone back to the legislature. It was a no-win situation for him, and he signed it. The problem he had is once he signed it, he didn't double, triple down. He didn't defend his actions vehemently. He really kind of ran away from that. And the left seized on that opportunity, which they always do. You ever notice when they screw up? You look at right now from an issue standpoint, the Biden administration, this country is on fire. He's been wrong on every foreign policy decision. He's essentially been wrong, and his staff is wrong on every economic situation. The border policy is an absolute nightmare. On no front are they doing well, and it's so bad that the press secretary sounds indignant and angry and bitter and shallow. And even his own chief of staff says, all of this economy stuff is basically a high-class problem. And instituting this class warfare. Our own governor has made many Roy Cooper has made many class warfare arguments about the rich, but nobody in this media, nobody's really holding his feet to the fire. I'll guarantee you if McCrory and Trump were in, McCrory would be pilloried about questions about Trump, but nobody's linking Roy Cooper, his party, to Joe Biden and his party. They won't ask him those tough questions. And we get an example of why that is. Why is it they won't ask him? Well, Katie Couric kind of revealed that the other day. Katie Couric has an interview with Ruth Bader Ginsburg prior to her passing about the Colin Kaepernick situation. She doesn't air an answer that would be damaging to Ginsburg, in which Ginsburg basically said, taking a knee in the way Colin Kaepernick's acting is just stupid. I mean, she literally says it's just stupid. And Couric, a member of the mainstream media, protects her and says, well, I liked her, so I didn't want the public to see that. And that's the problem, that people in the media don't want to see the left for what they really are, which is shallow, which is not open-minded, which is not tolerant, which is not caring about free market and enterprise and conservative. I mean, they don't care. Even their environmental policies sometimes actually accomplish just the opposite of what they say they want to. In Boiling Springs, it wasn't that long ago that they were doing a survey for red-cockaded woodpeckers. And if you had a tree on your lot that might be a place that woodpecker wants to be, then you could never cut the trees down on your lot. So before the survey came through, people just clear-cut all their lots. And that was just the opposite of what the left wanted to accomplish, right? But they never look at the consequences of their own bad policies. And now we have how many dozens and dozens of ships sitting off the coast? Super tankers, super cargo ships that we can't unload. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Well, you talk about never looking at policies and then looking at bad policies and the results of that. We'll look no further than to the southern border, of course. And Chad, I caught this morning. The Biden administration, apparently they have a plan to help provide some relief to those facilities along the southern border that have been overrun by the thousands of migrants, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions over the last 10 months, up to over 1 million at least that we know about. These are the ones that Border Patrol has encountered. Well, here's the big plan. The Biden administration getting ready to revive the Trump-era policy that forces migrants to stay in Mexico until their U.S. immigration court date. You think they'll give Trump a win on this when they announce this, or will they just kind of sweep it under the rug?
This is the kind of intolerance. Rather than look at whether a policy works or not, it's the person. Remember, they focus their hatred on a person. Mark Robinson, Dan Forrest, Donald Trump, anyone. They focus all of their attention on a person. and they tag an issue, twist it, and then attack the person and focus all of their might on that. The Trump era policies on immigration were working. They were fantastic. The border was being secured. Right now, we've got all of this paid-for fence, wall, whatever you want to call it, sitting in the desert in the Southwest. We're paying millions of dollars a day. It's for the contracts because we have contracts, right? But we're paying them not to build the wall, and the materials are already paid for, already there, sitting out in the desert. And the Biden administration says, oh, Donald Trump said that, so we're against it. And thank God Kamala Harris is in charge of our border. My God, see what a great job she's done. So, and the Swift administration admits it turned loose 125,000 people into society, into our society. You're worried about people and an insurrection. You're worried about enemies of the U.S., and yet you have no way. And those are the ones we actually had in custody at some point. If you multiply that by about 10, you got about 1-2 million people running loose in our country. We have no idea who they are, what their nationalities are, what they intend to do, that they're here. And that is a problem. And this administration is they're just wrong. And instead of standing up and saying, you guys are, even the COVID lockdown situation, rather than looking now, we have 2 years of experience now. We can look at what various countries have done all over the world. We can look at what a country like Sweden did that avoided the lockdowns. Can you see that Sweden did anything worse than any other country? No, you can't. You can't identify that lockdowns and masking work. You can't. You can look at it a million different ways. You can't show it worked. The virus burns through a population, whether you mask, whether you mandate it or not. It just does it maybe more slowly, but you move on. Freedom would have been the better option. It always is. But what we've got to be careful at coming out of this thing, Joe, is we've got to be really careful because now we've seen how compliant some people are with whatever they are told to do. And foundationally speaking, we as Americans, you, me, and everyone listening, regardless of your political affiliation, you have an obligation to question your government. We are not a country designed to be sheep. We weren't given any rights by the government. We were given them by our creator, right? So we have an obligation to ask, question, push back against. That's what makes this country, it should. A lot of people died to ensure that we are not led by tyrants. And now we're telling a lot of people in big government, yes, I will be compliant. I will do what I'm told. I will show you my papers. And that is an astounding turnaround. So don't think this is the end of this kind of behavior. You're just looking for the next big thing that you can be told what to do.
Chad, as we look through my lifetime, as we wrap up here this morning, you could argue that Jimmy Carter and the flatline economic movement of our country during that time brought us a Ronald Reagan. You can argue that 8 years of Obama, whether it be health care or the flatline economic movement of our country, brought us somebody like Donald Trump. Now we look at where we are now. How much pain when it comes to the American people are they going to have to deal with when it comes to inflation? Gas prices, store shelves empty, situation our southern border, healthcare workers quitting, airlines canceling flights, no workers at restaurants. At the end of the day, how much pain will Americans take before they decide that maybe we need to change our ways once again? Because this is the way the political pendulum flows, as we know, back and forth, as we've seen throughout modern history.
So we didn't like Trump because of the mean tweets and his general demeanor. But we now see Joe Biden doesn't send mean tweets, but you're seeing the consequences of the election. Elections have consequences. And I think you're seeing a lot of people, these are historically low numbers in a first year of a presidency. They're absolutely horrific on about every front. They are tagging it directly to them. So you're now finding Democrats that want to break. They're like starting to see water over the dam, saying, you know what, maybe I don't want to stick with this guy too much. So you're going to see the degree to which they kind of fade back. He has no political weight. This is a problem for Democrats, not just in D.C. Terry McAuliffe, the guy running for governor in Virginia, the former DNC chief, that guy was cruising to an easy victory to become governor of Virginia once again, mainly because Northern Virginia is just southern D.C. It's a big part of the swamp now. But now Youngkin, it looks like it's a close race, and Democrats are very concerned because that could be kind of a canary in the coal mine for what could be a disastrous year for Democrats next year. So they're going to have trouble passing their massive package. They don't have a lot of – right now, Governor Cooper does not have a lot of power. He does have the veto power, which he's exercised more than any governor – more than all governors combined in the history of North Carolina. He has utilized over 74, 75 times and continuing. So Democrats have got to figure out what the hell they want to stand for next year, because their issues are not working. It's not working for the economy. It's not working on foreign policy. It's not working in the state. They've really contributed nothing to North Carolina right now. The Republicans are squarely in control. We haven't had a budget agreed upon since Cooper's been governor, so he can't take credit for anything that's happening here. And when those supply chain issues hit, as they're starting to, the Democrats own that too. Sorry, pal. Your kid ain't getting a Christmas present because of this. Now, hopefully it'll ease. I want it to ease. I don't want gas prices. I can't stand that gas prices are $3 and in some parts of the country $4.50 a gallon. That hurts the poor the most. These policies always hit the poor the most, and the Democrats will blame the rich. It's their only go-to.
Chad, thanks so much for the time. As always, I hope you are able to enjoy the weekend.
Go vote in those municipal elections and pay attention to what those candidates are saying, because they're nonpartisan, a lot of them. You need to find out where those people stand, because a lot of people on the left are running these campaigns not as lefties, but they will govern as lefties, so be careful.
Well said. As we are getting ready to highlight one of those candidates here in the Wilmington City Council race here in just about 10 minutes when Cameron Moore, the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association, joins us with longtime council member Charlie Rivenbark. Looking forward to that conversation. Of course, we always thank Chad for lending some of his time and thoughts to the issues of the day, whether it be some of the statewide news going on around North Carolina, or, of course, up in the swamp, and, the national news cycle. I can't get over that the Biden administration is going back to a Trump-era policy and now having to crawl back to Mexico and say, hey, do you mind keeping hold of the thousands of migrants until we can get rid of this logjam at our southern border? This comes, of course, just days after the Homeland Security Secretary announced that, we're going to begin opening our borders to non-essential travelers from Canada and Mexico so long as you have the COVID jab. We're in la-la land, folks, and we're happy to bring you the news of the day, as much as it makes my hair turn gray and as much as it frustrates you. This is why, of course, we just ask you spend some time with us and then go about your life. Try to enjoy it. Get some fulfillment out of it. If you pay attention to this sort of stuff all day, you're going to be stress, anxiety-ridden, and not at your best for the people that you love most. As we hit the bottom of the hour news break, our friend Chad Adams with us every Friday morning inside this 8 o'clock block here on the Big Talker FM.
If you're anywhere near Oak Island, come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. They're on Oak Island. You're going to find the latest in Oak Island lighthouses, nautical charms, pendants. You're going to find bracelet, turtle charms, anything in the jewelry genre you need, you can get there. And if they don't have it, they'll find a way to get it for you. Come check out Seaside Jewelers at 8801 East Oak Island Drive. And if you tell them you heard it on the Big Talker FM, an extra 10% off your purchase, but only at Seaside Jewelers, 8801 East Oak Island Drive. The lowest prices in town. Come check us out today.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best, work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. An advisory panel to the Food and Drug Administration will today consider whether a booster shot of Johnson & Johnson is needed for those who received the single-dose vaccine. Yesterday, that same panel backed the Moderna booster for high-risk and older adults. The next step for Moderna, an FDA authorization, which would be followed by a CDC vote. The shots could start being given out as early as a week from today. New details this morning about former President Bill Clinton. He was admitted to an intensive care unit in a California hospital for a urinary tract infection that spread to his bloodstream. Clinton's doctors say the former president was put into the ICU for privacy and safety, not because he needs intensive care. Doctors say Clinton is in good spirits, talking to family and staff, and has been up and walking. He should be released soon. Back in the Cape Fear, detectives with the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office Special Crimes Unit arresting a supply man on multiple counts of sexual offenses against a child. 54-year-old Billy Joe Gore is charged with 8 counts of statutory rape of a child and first-degree rape of a child, among other sexually related charges. He's being held in the Brunswick County Detention Facility under a $1 million bond. Looking for work? Belk will be hosting a job hiring event tomorrow at both Wilmington locations from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Charlotte-based company plans to hire more than 5,000 full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees to fill sales, beauty, and operational positions. And at Curie Beach, a woman found a woolly mammoth fossil. Becky Wynn was walking in the sand in Curie Beach when she spotted the rare item about 6 feet from the ocean. She loves looking for unique shells and fossils that wash up. She says fossils have been hard to find this year and that Wednesday was her lucky day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be a bit on the warm side today. If you're a fan of those warm temperatures, they stick around as we head into the first half of this weekend. Today, we're expecting mostly sunny skies and temperatures flirting with some record highs, getting into the middle and upper 80s inland of the coast. The record high for Wilmington is 88 degrees today. And then we stay fairly quiet weather-wise tonight. Good weather for high school football as our temperatures drop down into the middle and upper 60s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Tree man.
Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I want to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
All right, twice a month on Fridays, you know it by now. We have the opportunity to catch up with Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association, as we highlight all things related to growth, development, the construction industry around one of the fastest growing areas in all of the country. And a little later on, we'll be talking with Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark, running for re-election through this municipal cycle with early voting underway. Election day set for November 2nd. Cameron, yesterday, and good morning. Yesterday, we were talking with a friend of mine about transportation, logistics, the issues with the supply chain, this, that, and the other. And he had referenced, in fact, this guy did his homework. He had gone all the way back into the archives and came to the time where you and I and we had a few other conversations. We're talking like 18, 19, 20, 21 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's been that long that you and I, along with a few others, had been talking about some of the things that are now at the forefront, at our doorstep when it comes to some of the issues that we're facing, material cost, labor issues, not only within your industry, but across the board. COVID exacerbated all this, kind of, as he described it, ripped the Band-Aid off of some problems that had been boiling like some liquid magma underneath the volcano before it erupts. And you hate to toot our own horn or say that, look, we were right. And, we were predicting this and forecasting this terrible situation that was on the horizon, but yet here we are. And it doesn't make it any easier,
right.
But it's amazing to me, how people on the ground are able to see things on the horizon much more quickly than those who live in their, elite bubbles, whether it be in Washington, D.C., or those who stir and steer the news cycle day to day.
No, I mean, you're exactly right, Joe. And first of all, good morning. Appreciate it, as always, having us on. It's the construction industry felt the brunt of it first after, really, quite frankly, during COVID. And obviously we saw what, we were seeing on the ground. We also saw that, overall global supply chain pretty much come to an abrupt stop and then kind of start to crawl back, so to speak. So, no, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, we've been talking about this since, I guess, about this time last year, give or take. And, I actually sent you that article early in the week about now, hey, look, the national news is finally picking up on it. And to be quite honest with you, the Biden administration, we have been beating on them as far as the commerce side of it, the lumber side of it, everything going on, the tariff side of it. And to be honest, they've really done nothing. They've done a couple small things to change some things. And so now their biggest push is, all right, we're going to push the ports basically to operate 24/7. So they're finally, I think, realizing the fact that the American people now, the economy is sputtering, and they're seeing what could happen. When you see national news talking about kids aren't going to get their Christmas presents, on Christmas Day, that becomes an epidemic. It becomes a national problem all of a sudden.
And again, then we're told that, people don't really pay attention to these sorts of things, like the rise in fuel or the rise in cost of goods when you go to the grocery store, or the inability to find, some products that you're used to, purchasing on a day-to-day, a weekly, or a monthly basis. We're told Americans don't really pay attention to all of this.
Right.
And, all right, government taking action, but government taking action doesn't always necessarily result in the best outcomes for the people it's intended for. So great that we've got the ports open 24/7. Well, now we need to find the truck drivers to be running those routes 24/7, because there's a massive labor shortage when it comes to truck drivers, and in due part because, the demographic of those who drive trucks are older. Many are tired, overworked, or ready to retire. And that's something that you're also facing in your industry when we talk about the average age of someone on the job.
Right. I mean, our average age in construction right now, it's really challenging. And, October is Careers in Construction Month. We're going to touch on that here in just a second, which brings us kind of to your question and what we're talking about. 42 years old, basically, is our national average age right now in the construction workforce. That's everything that we're looking at. That's literally 9 different trades, and then, of course, the sub-trades that come off of that. The other side of the equation is on the inspection side, the government side, the building inspectors. Their average age is roughly around 52 years old. So 42, 52, think about that. Within 10, 15, 20 years, essentially that workforce is going to be at the retirement age. If not already, a lot of that is at the retirement age. I look here within my local jurisdiction as far as some of the inspections departments, and I'm just kind of, thinking people through my head, looking at them. I mean, I'm looking at 60, 62, 65, 67, 68 years old. That's a significant challenge for us, which puts more focus on why we obviously come on the show to talk about the construction industry. It also puts more focus in October for the National Association of Home Builders really pushing careers in construction. And we're doing, I say it's not just October for us. It's every day, every minute pushing careers in construction. But October is a great time to highlight it. And we've been doing a couple different things. One of the things we actually have coming up with CTEC, which is our vocational high school here in New Hanover County, is next Monday. We'll be actually visiting out there with their students. I think we've got about 30 students, actually, Joe. Kind of excited about that. So we're going to try to do something a little crazy. We've got about 30 pumpkins lined up in our office right now. We're going to be taking those out there and actually carving pumpkins with power tools. So no chainsaws or nothing like that, but some small little Dremel tools and stuff. But the point is, it's an opportunity for our members and leadership to come out and do a hands-on instructional basically piece with the kids. And really just, quite frankly, interact with the kids and showcase to them what they do as the owner of the company or the one of the project managers for the company. So it's just a really good opportunity for us.
And that's one of those things that I think many people are looking at right now as far as how we can get some relief with this issue that we have up front and upcoming. As we just highlighted, always sort of ahead of the curve here,
Right.
looking at, down the line here in the next 10, 15 years, we're going to be dealing with, a shortage of, workers and those who can do these sorts of jobs to keep our economy moving from, a massive sector, of, our economic activity in the country when it comes to, building and construction, trying to get those mentors and people, spending some time, because a lot of these people are busy, like literally
Right.
24/7. They wake up in the morning, the phone's buzzing. By the time they put it down at night, they've probably missed 50 calls
Right.
that they need to catch up on the next morning. So these people are making some sacrifices, but also hopefully are having a bit of an understanding that eventually we're gonna have to pass this torch, and why not be that person that can help mentor these young people to make that pitch to say, hey, look at the life I'm living, pretty good one.
Right.
Why not come on board with us?
Right. I mean, nationally speaking, there was an article that came out. Actually, I think today is the 15th. It came out yesterday, actually. There's 344,000 new, basically unfilled jobs in the construction sector. That's what we're looking at, 344,000. And that may sound like, if you look at a national perspective, a small number, but that's just some of the totals we're looking at. We see the unemployment rate starting to fall a little bit, but at the end of the day, the challenge with our industry is that we do not have a strong cohort group of, I would say, from 18 to about 30 years old coming into our industry. We've got a lot of young, students that are starting to kind of get into the industry a little bit, understanding the industry as far as the vocational high schools and also at the carpentry stuff. Our industry has to we've got to be there. We've got to basically be the backstop, the first base, the second base, the third base, and, basically the home run at the same time. We have to be there. We have to be present. And we also have to give these kids, because that's at the end of the day, they are. I mean, at the end, 18, 21-year-old, yes, you're an adult, but we have to give them a shot. And we've got to be present. We've got to be active in this. And, we've got to do our part. And I feel like we are, but it's going to be small battles, incremental steps. It's a war that we're waging every day.
Cameron Moore with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Twice a month, we talk shop on the Construction Connection here on the Big Talker FM. Just a few minutes, we'll talk with Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark. Before we do that, Cameron caught a story just the other day, a headline from the area. Did not click on the story, but caught the headline.
Right.
Was that, again, highlighting the fact that we saw maybe, I won't say a downward trend, but a cooling off, so to speak, when it comes to the housing market. And what do you know, home sales in the month of September dropped 17%, I think I caught from the headline.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised. We've got a lot of different things. It's kind of the perfect storm hitting us right now. We've talked about the labor here this morning. We know about the material shortage. We've talked about that. You go in any news outlet right now, the big story, of course, is you've got, 50 container ships sitting outside in the port, basically there off of California. Lumber went down a little bit as far as dimensional lumber. We've talked about that. But what we've seen over the last probably month and a half, 30 to 45 days, garage doors, they're back to being a problem now, trying to get them. There's certain styles that you won't be able to get. And so we're seeing some of the same stuff kind of come back that we've talked on this show. So we're seeing this kind of the second wave, I guess I would say, a little bit. And to be honest with you, Joe, what's happening is what that article relates to the reason that home sales went down is that we don't have any homes to sell. I mean, we're selling them as fast as they're hitting the market. And quite frankly, we're selling them as fast as really somebody comes down and talks to a builder. So our inventory is way down. We don't really have a ton of inventory on the ground. And what we do have is selling as fast as it can. You know, I don't know the market statistics right now in New Hanover County, but at last time on average, we were looking somewhere around 20 days as far as when something hit the MLS. And I want to key in on that, actually hit the MLS. Some of these things are not even hitting the MLS, particularly on the new construction side. So materials, though, have become a challenge again for certain things. So we're kind of seeing the second wave.
In fact, I was talking with my brother-in-law yesterday who is in the business, and he said, about 10 to 12 weeks out for windows and probably about 18 weeks for door jams.
Right.
We're talking just door jams. I mean,
and
this is a pretty common
small
thing.
Things.
Yeah.
And it's really the smallest items right now are holding us up to be able to deliver that house to the consumer. We had an event yesterday, and I had a good conversation with one of our members that does a lot of remodeling, and they subcontract a good bit of their work out. And I mean, some of the same challenges we've talked about on this show, actually every challenge we've talked about on this show, they're dealing with. I mean, some of the smallest things, pigment, we've talked about pigment and paint. I'm not going to name the companies that are really struggling with it because they're our members, and I really feel for them, and I wish we could do something about it. But I mean, pigment of paint. Think about that. You want to go in and you want to get that paint. You go into the house and say, "What's that paint color?" Or you look at HGTV or the color of the year, so to speak, and you can't even get the pigment to make the white base basically pretty much that color. It's yeah. And I don't try to do doom and gloom on this show, but I do feel like we're kind of in for the next 3 months some interesting times right now.
As we try and compare other times in history, I know, and we'll take a time out here in a minute because I know Councilman Rivenbark is awaiting our call. But when we look at what went down in 2008 and all that, and how everything got flipped and turned upside down, that hit us pretty good. This is another pretty good whammy here that we're all facing across the board.
I mean, it is, and it's coming obviously at a really inopportune time, or in an opportune time, I guess I should say, as far as when we look at coming into the holidays and stuff. Our construction schedule, we look at, Thanksgiving and stuff. There'll be some shutdown over that. Look at Christmas. I mean, technically, our builders, from a closing side, you're probably only talking about 20 days of work. It's not to say they're not going to be on the job site on the construction side, but trying to close houses, get them to the consumers. From the mortgage side, there's certain things that will happen during the holidays where you won't be able to go through the closing processes because either you can't get a hold of somebody or documentation and work through the process. So, I mean, I'm the more I've talked with our members over the last week or so, the more I have an uneasy feeling as far as where we're kind of sitting right now. I feel like we're kind of teetering a little bit. To be honest with you, prove me wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I really do.
Okay. All we can do is, kind of cross our fingers because there's nothing really we can do. I mean, we're not, okay.
Well, and I mean, I think the thing is we're doing it right now, though. I mean, yes, you're correct, but we're doing it. We're advocating and talking about what's happening for your listeners to understand. And again, I've talked about it all the time. In the process, we have the consumer, we have the realtor, we have the builder. Ultimately, that's kind of the process right there. Of course, yes, there's other folks that go in that process, but that's essentially the three that are involved. We have to have that communication, and I want to make sure as we do these shows and stuff that your listeners, which ultimately could be a consumer or homeowner, understands what we're dealing with, because it's hard for our industry to communicate to somebody. I mean, if I was to tell you, Joe, that I was building you a new house, that I can't finish your house because I can't get the doorknob that you want.
You don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, period. You don't want to hear that. You're like, I don't want to hear that, builder. I mean, are you nuts? What are you talking about? You can't get the doorknob. Just go to Lowe's and get it. It's not there. So
literally.
We'll work through it. Our industry always has. Where there's a will, there's a way. We meet the challenge head on. But we'll probably be talking about this until the new year.
Cameron Moore, the executive officer with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Twice a month, we talk shop on the award-winning Construction Connection segment here on the Big Talker FM. When we get back, Wilmington City Council member Charlie Rivenbark joins the conversation, and that comes your way right after this.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Mic check, mic check. It's Yael Osowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catanacci Show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best: work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Besides my involvement in product recovery, I'm also in the construction business. I say that to say this. When we have tropical storms or hurricanes, the real hard, difficult, expensive, and dangerous work is usually the result of trees falling on homes or other personal property. Hurricane season is not the only time to get prepared for this. As a matter of fact, it's before and after hurricane season that you need to get prepared. My son Chris started his tree business called Climb Pro Expert Tree Care after Hurricane Florence. Chris has all the equipment and manpower to take on even the most challenging jobs. With over 20 years of combined experience, Climb Pro LLC can safely remove any unwanted hazardous trees from your property. They also offer tree pruning, elevation, dead wood removal, and other expert tree care services. Don't wait until you have a tree emergency. Visit climbpro.com, that's climb with a K. Check them out on Facebook or call Chris Markley at 910-540-5249. Mention this ad for a 10% discount.
Keeping Charlotte informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Twice a month, we talk with the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association, Cameron Moore, as part of our Construction Connection segment here on the Big Talker FM. Everything related to growth, development surrounding the construction industry, what we're seeing locally, how that matches up with some of the things going on across our state and around our nation. early voting for the upcoming municipal election got underway yesterday. That continues for the next 16 days or so, with November 2nd serving as election day this year for the city council race here in Wilmington, over in the town of Leland, and many of the other municipal races that are going on here throughout southeastern North Carolina. And it's unique this year in that the Wilmington area moving forward with these elections, as others across the state have been put on hold due to the redrawing of the legislative maps because of the delay in the census data coming down to the state of North Carolina. With that said, Cameron, you've done a great job this cycle and the previous one during the midterms of or during the presidential election of 2020 to bring in, the different candidates running for county commission and some of the others. And now this morning we welcome in Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark. Councilman, are you there? Good morning.
Yes, I'm here.
And it's great to have you on. And I kind of give Cameron the leeway because he wants to talk about topics specific to his industry, and it is one of the well-discussed topics across southeastern North Carolina these days: growth, development, construction. I have a few other tidbits that we'll get towards the end of the interview. But Cameron, the floor is yours here for the next little while.
Appreciate it, Joe. Charlie, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I appreciate you coming on and joining us this morning. And just wanted to have a quick conversation, and have some time with you on the show this morning. So Joe's listeners and our listeners that listen in every morning on our Construction Connection, for the folks that may not know you, can get to know you a little bit more. And I guess that's really my first question. Charlie, who is Charlie Rivenbark?
Well, that's pretty simple. I'm a Wilmington native. I grew up in Winter Park, went to New Hanover County schools, got drafted into the U.S. Army in 1969, served a tour in Vietnam. I was fortunate enough to be in the infantry. So it's quite an experience. Made a lot of lifelong, lasting relationships over there with my buddies. Came back home and prided myself on being an entrepreneur. Started several new businesses and was in the restaurant business for about 15 years. But most of my adult life has been spent in the commercial real estate field. I'm a broker. I've never developed anything, but I've certainly sold, a lot of commercial tracts and properties and leasing and what have you. And I have two grown sons, Chad and Travis. I have a granddaughter, Molly, 4.5, and a grandson, Grayson, 15.5. So I have a lot of reasons to be very caring about my community, and have served on city council for 20 years. And I'm 73 years old. I'm in excellent health, and I'm seeking a fifth term. I'm sorry, a sixth term. No, a fifth term. I get it. Anyway, the math doesn't matter. And I'm a pretty much a center to the right politician. I'm a member of the Republican Party. I'm very proud to be on your show this morning. Joe has a heck of a following, and Wilmington Cape for Home Builders do a magnificent job. They build our town.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. It's a very good segue kind of in our next question, talking about building the community. As far as, you being a native, you've seen this community change quite a bit. I've been here now for almost, I think, 28 years, so I've seen it change quite a bit. And there was an article recently that had, and I've seen it a couple different places, but it ranked Raleigh and Wilmington in the top 6 real estate markets in the nation. And I wasn't surprised to see that article, and I'm probably going to bet you probably weren't surprised as well. But talk a little bit about, as far as just, from your, living here, growing up here, being born and raised here, to where we are today and where we're trying to get to with the future with the city. What do you see as some of the challenges that have taken place, and kind of not just so much what we're dealing with some of the things today, but also maybe looking into the future as far as some of those challenges?
Well, growing up, the Atlantic Coast Line Railroad was the big payroll. And when they left in 1959 and relocated in Jacksonville, Florida, that prompted civic leaders like Dan Cameron, Bruce Cameron, all of the folks that go along with that genre of wonderful civic leaders. they came together and formed the Committee of 100.
Mm-hmm.
And within a few years, we had DuPont, Corning, GE, Hercules, and it spelled the difference between just a town that was going to sit here and die and a town that was going to grow. And we've continued to grow. And then you get into the mass exodus of people coming out of the north and other places coming in here. Change comes hard. We went from being a sleepy little railhead town to a hustling, bustling port city with a major university, a teaching hospital, a deep water port. And then in the 70s, we get the interstate coming in here. So all of those things are part of the menu that caused Wilmington to grow. We're not a secret anymore. And we have our good folks over at WBD doing economic development. And they do a fantastic job. They run along beside the city and the county, and we try to help whenever we can. To kind of echo what the mayor says and what we all think, we want our people, when they grow up, to be able to maybe go to college here and stay here and work. But change does come hard. And a lot of people that come here, they want to be the last one in. And that just isn't the way it works. I was leaving town Wednesday morning, headed up I-40 around 7:30, and there was backup traffic that was completely stopped from from Martin Luther King on North College Road all the way out almost to Castle Hayne. And that's just coming in on 40.
Mm-hmm.
You go to 17 north and south and 421, it's the same way coming into our city every morning. And that's a wonderful thing, but it impacts our traffic grid. And we can't do anything about that. We do the best we can at the city level to keep our streets in good repair. Our partner, DOT, have had some issues that will at some point be rectified, and they'll be able to get back to doing the intersections and the flyovers that are already on the state transportation improvement plan. As far as the bridge goes, who knows how that's going to shake out? We keep hoping and crossing our fingers and praying that will come one day, because we sorely need that. But the jobs are coming. A lot of people come here and bring their job with them, and all they need is high-speed internet, an airport, and a good highway system. So, the formula for failure is a town that's not growing, and this town is growing. The whole region is growing. We get a lot of number one, top 5 accolades across the country with our Riverwalk, clean air, a lot of the things that people are looking for. And in this world, that we get looked at a lot and don't even know we're getting looked at. With the internet, the age that we live in, we have to take our A game to the market every day. And that includes schools, jobs for trailing spouses. All of those things come into play, and we're cognizant of that. There's a lot of things that people don't think about, but we do. So I think that Wilmington is in excellent shape. We're growing, and that sometimes causes, growing pains.
Right. You mentioned a couple of different things I want to touch on, and Joe and I, before we jumped on the call with you this morning, we were talking about, and we've been talking about this now for almost 18 months till we're blue in the face, is the whole pandemic and what it created as far as the national supply chain issues. And of course, now the national news is finally picking up on the fact that they figured out there's 50 container ships sitting off the port there in California. And why are they sitting out there? That's because they can't get in. Whole nother conversation in itself. But, the interesting thing you mentioned was the transportation side. Who would have really thunk, so to speak, that during a pandemic when we all went home and weren't driving, the gas tax and how much revenue that provided for NCDOT, just on the road transportation side. And so, they certainly have had their significant challenges as well. Opportunity-wise, what would you say are some of the opportunities looking ahead, as far as just, we are growing, and you are right. And I've been in this for almost 26 years. I've heard many city council members, county leaders, mayors say that if as a town, and not just the city of Wilmington, but as a town or a city, if you're not growing, you're dying. And the challenge with that, as you as a city council member, is that more and more people want services, and more services, well, you have to pay for them. And so that's a unique challenge, and that's why growth, we say for all of our stuff, it pays for itself. I mean, the more you're growing, the more that it provides for opportunities to enhance those services. But talk about some of the opportunities you see, maybe right here before us right now, and then kind of moving ahead here in the next maybe 2 to 5 years.
Well, first of all, before I got involved in the political side of it, I always just think of water and sewer as just something that I paid a bill each month. But where water and sewer go, so does growth. And without it, you don't have that. Recently, the CFPUA with a grant was able to provide 421 with water and sewer. And up until now, the only thing you could ever do along that corridor was like distribution, warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Now with water and sewer in play, we have an opportunity to put some manufacturing out there, people that use a lot of water and need that. So that's a real plus. The northern end of the county, Sidbury Road area on the northern end where the land is, there is much discussion and talk going on at the CFPUA level, New Hanover County level about getting water and sewer along those corridors, and having served on the CFPUA since 2009, I've been there when it was just kind of a pipe dream, but now it seems to be coming to reality. The land is scarce in New Hanover County, and it's going to be Pender, Brunswick, or is where the land is. And just recently I've seen plans coming along with Brunswick and Leland where large developments are coming along. People are coming, and you can't put a gate on I-40 and stop people from coming, so we better be ready for it.
Right.
And
right.
the pandemic caused some funny things to happen. People started doing and buying and doing things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, and in a lot of ways it was good. But you mentioned the supply chain. It's if they could get those all those containers unloaded in port, then they have the problem with trucks bringing them to the different commercial nodes where they need to go. So it's just a kind of a perfect storm, and God help us, I hope we get over it soon. So to answer your question, the opportunities are unbounding, but the infrastructure has to be in place. The DOT they're going to be back, and there's many projects that were already approved, funded, and the perfect storm hit them in the name of Florence and Matthew, and then the MAP Act. It just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But Wilmington is such a vibrant, southeastern North Carolina is such a vibrant place. We'll overcome it just with the sheer growth that's coming here, and increasing our tax base. The city council and the New Hanover County commissioners are working very closely together, and that's not something that's always been the case over the last couple of 3 decades. And it's refreshing that we are all reading off the same sheet of music and trying to do what's best, because New Hanover County is becoming just as urbanized as the city of Wilmington. So it's very important that we do work together, and we are.
Good point. I would certainly agree with that. We say that all the time from the home builders situation as well, as far as what we're seeing as far as growth. I mean, talk about Sidbury Road, the water and sewer that you touched on. We're looking at that area, Castle Hayne. There's some areas, of course, down in the southern portion of New Hanover County. We're seeing those little pockets, so to speak. But we are running out of land, over the course of the time. So one of the things we've looked at, and really the topics we've focused on from the Home Builders Association side, is density, vertical construction, height, and diversity of housing. And I know housing here has been a hot topic. Quite frankly, for the last 10 years, but it's really been over the last 3 years a really hot topic, and it's more the affordability side and some of the challenges around that. And Charlie, we'll touch on this a little bit, but for the listeners here, it's not just a city of Wilmington problem. It is a national problem, and there's really no one-size-fit-all approach to fix it. There's no, here's the silver bullet, this gets rid of it. There's a lot of different ways to kind of attack the issue. So let's talk a little bit about it. The LDC, that's the Land Development Code. The city council y'all recently just approved that, and you kind of have it as an interim approach to it, to where it'll become effective later this year. And as it sits right now, basically both codes are being reviewed. Well, plans as they come into the city are being reviewed by both codes. But there's some things in there. There's some ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units. There's some other incentives. There's some other things that were done into the single family style, the townhome style. Talk a little bit about what your thoughts on the LDC are, and then we'll kind of come back to the affordability question a little bit and some of the things that you feel like the city's doing and playing a role in that.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, anytime you change something that has such a large umbrella as a land development code, it always causes a lot of heartburn, a lot of angst. Second thing is what we've marched out there took 2 or 3 years in the making. In fact, Ron Satterfield, who's our new interim director of planning since Glenn Harbeck is retiring, he was pretty much taken off of everything he had been doing and concentrated solely on the LDC rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
It hadn't been done in I'm going to mess this up, but I think it's been like 35, 40 years since we rewrote the LDC.
That's pretty close.
And the other thing that a lot of people don't remember is we didn't have a zoning ordinance in this town for some time in the 50s. And a lot of property was just given flat R15, R20 zoning. And then along comes all the growth, and then all that property that was laying out there zoned residential, it needed to be rezoned, and that caused a lot of heartburn amongst our citizens. But it was just a fact of life. We had to have that land to do, something less than R15, R20 to prevent sprawl. The LDC is in Glenn Harbeck's own words, it's not perfect. And there will be a lot of massaging to it, and we'll keep doing it till we get it as right as we can. And you were so spot on about we're comparing the plans that are submitted, with the old LDC versus the new, and see where if there's any cracks that we need to patch up or what have you. So it's a long range thing, but we have built some flexibility into it. I've always thought that made a lot of sense. That rigid justice is injustice, and I feel the same way about about something like the LDC. It needs to have flexibility in it, where if something comes along that's got a better way or a better idea, we need to be able to react to that. So, as a council member, and I think others agree with me down there, that we'll constantly be looking at ways that we can continue to make it good, not just between now and the end of the year, but always.
Right. Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that too, because kind of out of that conversation, the county was going through the same process as well as updating their code. I mean, really, to be honest, they were on kind of the same glide path. They hadn't updated their code in roughly about 30 years. You guys were looking at about 30 years as well. And through that process, on our side, we constantly, and I'll use the term, we constantly beat on both the city and the county that we needed more diversity in housing. And you touched on it. Some of the challenges of how we have grown in the city and particularly in the county is R15, R20, which is a very inefficient way. And for the listeners, that's a 15,000 square foot lot. It's a 20,000 square foot lot. An acre is 43,560. So you're eating up land and mowing grass, so to speak. And so as land becomes more challenged here in New Hanover County, but at the same time, as you mentioned, there's not a wall at the end of I-40. People are coming here every day. I talk about it all the time on this show. Somebody here this morning, it's after 9 o'clock. So somebody's sitting in an office this morning with a closing attorney closing on a new house. So people are moving here every day. That diversity of housing, our focus was trying to get to the affordability. Diversification. This is multifamily, single family, townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, all within some of the same projects. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges you have seen just in your real estate side with affordability, and then let's kind of shift gears a little bit about what are some of the things that the city has been doing.
Well, I've sat through so many meetings or I've been on these ad hoc committees, and everybody feels good when they leave, and nothing ever got done. The city, $5 million is not a paltry sum, and that's what we've allocated this year toward our rental rehab program, our low interest loans for first-time home buyers. We're cognizant of it, but it costs, and we only have so much. But people always want, why can't developers build affordable housing? Well, they could, but they're in the business to make a profit. we wouldn't go to the dry cleaning industry and say, why can't you clean all these clothes for 10 cents on the dollar? That's a bad analogy, but I mean, it wears on me, because everything developers touch our lives all during the day, where we live, where we shop, where we go to the doctor's offices. Developers took the chance, laid their credit out on the line, and did it. And they want to do that, but we have to give them a reason to do it. And that, my friend, is in the LDC, there's some flexibility in there about you get more density, set aside some of your units, a certain percentage on a 15-year term, to go to 80% or even dip down into 60% of the area median income. 60 is affordable housing, 80 is workforce housing. We got people here that we rely on every day, teachers, firemen, policemen, that can't afford to live in the city of Wilmington. And the proliferation of the apartments, I know a lot of people that if you'd have told me 10 years ago they would want to move out of their house in Pine Valley or wherever and move into an apartment, I'd have said, you're crazy. They love it. And I mean, these apartment builders aren't building them spec. They've done their homework. They know what's going on, and people are coming here, and that's a new lifestyle. That's what we were talking about a while ago. When things come up in our development schemes and what have you, we need to be ready for that. So we've got to go back and do infill development. In the old days, that was called smart growth because the infrastructure was already there. And infill development and going back, starting over is not the easiest thing in the world, because you have to have staging areas and stuff like that. It's challenging, but that's where the land is that need to be redeveloped. And we've got some good developers around here that see that and are doing it.
Right.
I don't know if that answered your question. I got off on a tangent.
No, it does. I mean, and you're touching on, and I think what you answered it actually perfect in the sense that there's not a one-size-fit approach here. I mean, you guys have dedicated millions of dollars to the programs that you've had, and quite frankly, some of those programs, Charlie, the city's had for many, many years. I mean, I hear folks all the time talk about the city's not doing anything for affordable housing, and I argue for you guys all the time. Y'all have had the HOPE program and the home loan program and some of that programs for quite some time. I think you answered it perfectly in the sense that as a community, we have to come together. The challenge with coming together as a community, and particularly when a developer, comes in and has a high-density project, it involves multifamily and maybe a single family, neighbors come out against that. And it puts you guys directly in the line of sight, so to speak. And that's the challenge of being, an elected official. So no, I think you answered it correctly in the sense that it's not a one-size-fit approach here. I'm going to bring Joe back into the conversation a little bit, see if he has anything he wants to kind of add in.
Right.
That's Cameron Moore and Councilman Charlie Rivenbark. Again, Councilman is seeking your vote in his bid for re-election with the early voting already underway and the municipal election set for November 2nd. Of course, Cameron, the executive officer with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. Councilman, just as we kind of wrap up this morning and off base for just a moment, middle of last year, we're dealing with a lot of turbulent sort of activity in our city, for one reason or the other, kind of following a national trend. And I thought you said something during one of these, highly contested council discussions that were all over Zoom, which, I don't think does anyone good when we're just sitting behind a computer screen, hashing out our differences. But nonetheless, you had made a statement that said, why are we following, what we see nationally and what's coming across our TV? Given our history, black eyes, positives that have come from the city of Wilmington over, its existence. Why not be different? Why not try to, showcase leadership and maybe begin, a new trend that isn't, one that we see nationally and, that kind of just, is the go along to get along sort of a way of thought that we have in many instances throughout this country. And you were completely criticized and, lambasted for, having that sort of thought, which I thought was, one that was meant to bring people together in a time saying, hey, listen, we don't have the greatest past in the city's history. We've overcome some of that. Yeah, we still have some challenges. We're trying to address these sorts of things. But why not be different? Why not be leaders? In your mind, why do you think you got so much pushback for making that sort of statement?
Yeah, I did, and but Joe, there was also a lot of people that felt like I did, and of course, I had never had an opportunity to speak to them before that particular night or day or whenever that meeting was. But a lot of people came out and said, I kind of agree with that. It's not easy. And of course, at the end of the night, I'm either on the wrong end of a 1-6 vote or a 2-5 vote. So, but I am going to speak my piece. I just am. And I thought that what they were trying to cook would prove to be divisive, and I've been proven right. There's a lot of people that are very upset about that, but they by and large they're not verbal about it. I mean, they don't get out. They're not in the newspaper. They're not out there carrying signs and doing that. But and I represent everybody, and you can go back for 20 years and look at my votes. Any vote that has ever come along that's going to better any segment of our society or the town as a whole, I've always been foursquare behind it, always. And you can check me on that. But when I see something that I think is just, I don't know, just, I don't know how to even describe it. I'm going to speak out. And, my mother used to tell me years ago, she said, all you do is take one foot out of your mouth so you can get the other one in. And that may be true, but I'm going to speak my piece. And I think anybody that knows me knows that. And I would love, that was really sincere from my heart. I thought, let's be different. Let's be Wilmington. We don't need to be like Portland or all these places that were on fire. All lives matter. Do Black lives matter? You bet. They sure do. But all lives matter. And it didn't work out quite the way I would like for it to. But we'll get past this. We just will.
Charlie, I have never heard that analogy that your mom told you. That's a great one. I'm going to have to keep that one in the back of my head. Joe and I were sitting here looking at each other, kind of chuckling. That's a good one.
Well, she told me that.
That's a really good one. I'll let Joe go, but real quick, I did also want to give you this floor too. So tell our listeners this morning that are on the show with us where they can find more information as far as your campaign.
Okay. It's Rivenbark for City Council is a website. Being an old school guy, this is all kind of new to me, but we do have a website, and my number is 200-5244. I have two emails. One is at wilmingtonnc.gov, charlie.rivenbark@wilmingtonnc.gov, and my other one is charlie@capefearcommercial.com. I take probably 20, 30 calls a day that are non-real estate. I will never give you a runaround. You can call me about anything. I love, my brother is now on the county commission. He's fairly new at it. He said, one of the nicest things we get to do is help people sometimes. And if we can't, we can at least listen to them. Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with him. It's because there's times when I can't pull rabbits out of a hat, but it is nice to know that we can point people in the right direction or get involved and help them. But anyway, I hope everybody will get out and vote. Early voting is important, and I would certainly appreciate your vote. If you have any questions, I just gave you how to get up with me. Call me. I'll talk to anybody about anything.
I appreciate that. And, from the association side too, for Joe's listeners, I want to make sure, we are an advocacy organization. We support candidates. We get involved in politics, and we are supporting your campaign as well for your reelection. So we appreciate how you have supported our industry, and we want to make sure we support you, and appreciate you coming on the show this morning. And I'm going to turn it back over to Joe so we can kind of finalize everything here this morning.
Yeah, Councilman, just thank you so much for the extended time. Not too often we get an opportunity to spend an hour with one of our elected officials, from the local level all the way on up, to the national level. So thanks again, and we wish you well, in this latest run for re-election.
Joe, you've always kept up with me. You've been persistent, and I haven't always been there, but I do appreciate that, and I'll turn a new leaf. Okay, thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Charlie.
That's Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark with us here this morning on the Big Talker FM. Again, a reminder, early voting continues for the next 16 days in these local elections, Election Day, November 2nd. Also some opportunities next week to catch up with the candidates here in Wilmington. We've got a candidates forum that will be held over at Gerard and Tracy Newkirk's place at Genesis Block. That'll be Wednesday the 20th. That's this upcoming Wednesday. And then on the 21st, over at the Union Station building downtown Cape Fear Community College campus. That's a week from, this past Thursday on the 21st. I believe that gets underway at 6:30. So still some opportunities to meet and talk and get to know some of the candidates seeking your vote in this Wilmington City Council race. Cameron, thanks so much, man. As always, great stuff, and we'll catch up in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Joe.
All right, that's our twice-a-month award-winning Construction Connection segment here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
Well, hey, y'all, it's Holly Brewer
and Amy Ludwig and Kristen Ludwig
from Just Think, the podcast where we don't want to tell you what to think. We just challenge you to do it. We're happy to have some of our episodes featured right here on 106.7 The Big Talker on Saturdays at 11 a.m. So we hope you join us in the conversation and most importantly, just think.
Hear Tom Goolsby on the Joe Catanacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker, 106.7 FM.
Acoustic wave therapy at the Frank Institute is a revolutionary treatment for inflammation, issues of blood flow, and is a solution for the constant suffering of chronic pain. Through the localized transmission of sound waves, stem cells are stimulated to bring about restored blood flow, vascular regeneration, and the disbursement of pain receptors to affected areas. If you've been told that your issues could not be treated without surgery or prescription, give us a call. Non-invasive, non-surgical, and prescription-free. Acoustic wave therapy is only available at the Frank Institute. Call today, 910-679-8534, and ask about acoustic wave therapy.
Hey folks, Ramsey personality Ken Coleman here. Every day we get calls from people in all walks of life who all want the same thing, a plan. Whether you're stuck in a job that you have no passion for or you want to know how to save for retirement, you can get advice from the experts right here on The Ramsey Show.
Hey, I'm Yael Osowski.
And I'm David Clement.
We're the host of Consumer Choice Radio, broadcasting every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Consumer Choice Radio is a weekly conversation featuring the latest news, interviews, and expert analysis that covers consumer topics from around the world.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's a tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWA News. An advisory panel to the Food and Drug Administration will today consider whether a booster shot of Johnson & Johnson is needed for those who received the single-dose vaccine. Yesterday, that same panel backed the Moderna booster for high-risk and older adults. The next step for Moderna, an FDA authorization, which would be followed by a CDC vote. The shots could start being given out as early as a week from today. New details this morning about former President Bill Clinton. He was admitted to an intensive care unit in a California hospital for a urinary tract infection that spread to his bloodstream. Clinton's doctors say the former president was put into the ICU for privacy and safety, not because he needs intensive care. Doctors say Clinton is in good spirits, talking to family and staff, and has been up and walking. He should be released soon. Back in the Cape Fear, detectives with the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office Special Crimes Unit arresting a supply man on multiple counts of sexual offenses against a child. 54-year-old Billy Joe Gore is charged with 8 counts of statutory rape of a child and first-degree rape of a child, among other sexually related charges. He's being held in the Brunswick County Detention Facility under a $1 million bond. Looking for work? Belk will be hosting a job hiring event tomorrow at both Wilmington locations from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Charlotte-based company plans to hire more than 5,000 full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees to fill sales, beauty, and operational positions. And at Curie Beach, a woman found a woolly mammoth fossil. Becky Wynn was walking in the sand in Curie Beach when she spotted the rare item about 6 feet from the ocean. She loves looking for unique shells and fossils that wash up. She says fossils have been hard to find this year and that Wednesday was her lucky day. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, today's going to be a bit on the warm side today. If you're a fan of those warm temperatures, they stick around as we head into the first half of this weekend. Today, we're expecting mostly sunny skies and temperatures flirting with some record highs, getting into the middle and upper 80s inland of the coast. The record high for Wilmington is 88 degrees today. And then we stay fairly quiet weather-wise tonight. Good weather for high school football as our temperatures drop down into the middle and upper 60s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. Twomenandatruck.com.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place. Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Dana Lash. Presidents have to be able to have no BS conversations with people that are advising them, right? People that they are depending on for guidance. They have to be able to have very honest conversations with these individuals without constantly worrying about some legal reprisal that could impact them making and maybe perhaps be a hindrance to them making the best decision or the best plan of action for that particular issue. The Dana Show.
3 to 6 p.m. only on the Big Talker FM.
All right, as we move through the final half hour of our show here this morning, extended conversation with Wilmington City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark with the municipal election here for the city. Again, there are 3 seats up for grabs on council. You have the mayoral race and lots going on throughout our region. And, of course, following all the news statewide, nationally, internationally, as we often do in this final segment of the broadcast week with our friends from the Consumer Choice Center. And with Yael Osowski out this week after the Osowskis added another member of their family tree this week, another beautiful baby girl. David Clement of the Consumer Choice Radio Show will serve as the pinch hitter this morning. David, it's a pleasure, as always, and it's great to have you with us here this morning from north of the border. I hope all is well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, all is well. We're doing great over here.
Well, just a couple of weeks ago, I actually was up in Buffalo and went to Niagara Falls, and I'm looking out over into your city, and in front of my hotel room, there's this big old tent out there, and they've got people in bubble suits and nuclear gear, and they are awarding COVID tests or giving COVID tests out for the lovely price of $225. My passport's expired, so that's another story because of the backup we have here. It takes me about 6 months right now to get my passport restored. So I remember the days of being able to go across the border without any sort of passport to Canada. That no longer the case, I guess, post 9/11. But from that note, $225 for a swab of the nose to get into your country, and well, you still cannot get here. Maybe that changes here in the next few months, but what a mess! And we talk about some of the things behind COVID, the pandemic. Boy, someone's making a lot of money out of all this.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of money to be made. So although we can't drive over the border, you can fly to the U.S. And so I did. I did recently. I was in Washington D.C. and yeah, I was hit with, I think it was $190 for the PCR test in order to be able to come back, and that's pretty pricey considering. I mean, the amount of Canadians who pre-COVID, of which I would be one of them, who would make regular day trips to Buffalo to funds maybe we don't have, or do some shopping and things like that. So it's very common for folks in Southern Ontario before COVID to just go across the border into the United States for day trips. And obviously that is pretty much eliminated because of COVID, and then also because of some of these additional requirements. And so I know that folks, businesses at the border are kind of anxiously waiting for things to reopen because there's just so much commerce that flows both ways.
I was actually hearing stories while I was up there of Canucks who were basically shipping their RVs and vehicles to the U.S. and then jumping on a plane, and then when they were coming back to their home country, they were getting in a little trouble for going and bending the rules just a bit to continue their lives that were not necessarily causing any danger to anyone. They were by themselves and maybe headed to snowbird country for a couple of weeks to get out of the situation up there, and they got themselves in a little trouble on the way back.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that if you're flying from Canada to the United States, you have to provide proof of vaccination. And so we're talking about people who are already vaccinated, which really makes me kind of scratch my head. Of course, I mean, the pandemic is serious. It's killed a lot of people. But if you're already 2 weeks past your second dose, or you can prove that you have recovered within a certain time period, I'm not sure what that time period is. It's hard pressed for me to see a justification for some of the extreme measures, just given that we're talking about people who are vaccinated, so they present far lower risk than, I mean, we're not talking about last summer when we didn't have any vaccinations. We've certainly come a long way in that regard. And so it does leave me scratching my head a little bit.
Well, and that kind of segues into this piece that you have up at consumerchoicecenter.org, this new paper out looking at this one-size-fits-all approach. And in your purview, one size fits all doesn't actually fit it all, because we all know that and now with a better understanding, particularly of the virus, that it hits older people, folks who've got different sort of underlying health conditions way worse than, say, our children, for instance. Yet here in the U.S., we have some of the most strict, some of the strictest mandates as far as masks and some of the other things in place still for our children. And this is kind of the overall discussion that we're having, sort of this fundamental conversation where some people believe that a one-size-fits-all approach with a nationalized, centralized governing body overseeing all of us is the way, while others believe in things like individual liberty and freedom to make choices, even the wrong choices, and then to come back from those wrong choices and correct the mistakes so you don't let it happen again. Give us a little insight into this new paper you have at the Consumer Choice Center website at consumerchoicecenter.org.
Yeah, so basically we're looking at hazards and risks, and it's actually quite fitting in regards to COVID. So the people who are maybe in the COVID zero crowd, so they don't really see any end to government policy so long as there are any cases. They're really just looking at the hazard rather than managing risk. And so we've published this paper. It doesn't touch on COVID, but it looks at all sorts of other things, whether it be chemical policy with PFAS or how cannabis is regulated in Canada. More often than not, we see regulators take a hazard-based approach, which often leads to really heavy-handed and frankly, just overreactions from policymakers, as opposed to maybe having a more adult conversation in terms of where risk lies, what the exposures are, how do we manage risk appropriately to avoid really terrible situations. And so we run through a couple case studies there where we feel that governments have missed the mark, and we're going to probably add to the paper as time goes on, because there are just so many examples where these overreactions have some serious consequences for ordinary Americans, for consumers, or for people who just care about public policy that's actually focused on getting good outcomes rather than taking like a hazard-based approach and overreacting and seeing some of the craziness that we've seen. I mean, Australia in regards to COVID is probably the perfect example. They're arresting people for walking outside if they don't have a mask. Things like that, where you're like, that has nothing to do with managing risk. It's just a pure overreaction. And so it isn't COVID related, the paper, but it certainly is relevant in terms of how policymakers react to things.
Well, and with that reaction, of course, comes consequences, particularly when there's overreach, and we're seeing it right now. Dealing with some of these supply chain issues, as you mentioned. A lot of commerce between our two countries, and they've been, pretty much put on standstill for quite some time. We know from the massive increase in lumber prices from late last year into the first few months of this year. Empty store shelves. Hard pressed to find my kid's flavor of juice boxes that she likes because the truck didn't show up. And these are all results and consequences of decisions made because we were looking at some of the hazards in place without assessing some of the unintended or intended consequences of all this. However, you may want to look at it. And what's the response here from government in Washington, David? Well, let's spend some more money at the tune of $6 trillion, which is going to only lead to magnifying this issue even worse, at least through my point of view.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't see the link between monetary policy or government overspending and inflation. And now we're seeing inflation tick up beyond what really most people expected. And then you throw in supply chain issues. So it's not just goods are becoming more expensive. It's that they're becoming more expensive and less available, which is really a 1-2 punch for your ordinary persons just trying to make ends meet. So I feel, not to be too pessimistic, but I feel like we're on the verge of something that really is quite negative and quite impactful for ordinary people, people who are just trying to get on with their lives and move on from what's happened over the last 18 months. And that's going to be a lot harder if this trend continues.
David Clement, once again, pinch hitting for our friend Yael Osowski here with the Consumer Choice Center. You can hear that tag team on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock right here on the Big Talker FM. The latest edition of the Consumer Choice Radio Show airs tomorrow as part of our great block of local programming that we've got for you over the weekend. David, when we look at the way in which the media has covered this whole thing, and how again certain narratives are set, particularly within the mainstream, because frankly, we here in this little old corner of the world that we live in, with boots on the ground, experiencing a lot of the things that now the national media is getting their attention towards. We've been highlighting a lot of this stuff for 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 months when it comes to the worker shortages, the supply chain issues, what's on the horizon. COVID just kind of sped all this up and magnified it. And as one of our guests yesterday, compared it to ripping a Band-Aid off a wound, in that now the chickens have come home to roost. Why is it that we can't get those national outlets that so many people consume on a daily basis to see kind of what you and I see day to day?
I mean, it's a good question. I think that there's a pretty serious divide in regards to the way the pandemic has impacted people. And I mean, ironically, I fall into demographically the category of the people who I'm about to criticize. Is there are a lot of people who the pandemic obviously has limited their ability to do fun stuff. But it didn't impact their income. They were able maybe to comfortably work from home, or they were already working from home. And so I see a lot of people in that demographic, which I am, almost forget that there were a lot of people who had to go to work, had to show up to work over the last 18 months every day, or they didn't have somewhere to go to work to anymore. And it's almost like there's a little bit of a lack of empathy. Like folks like myself, maybe a little too righteous, sitting on their silver throne, forgetting that ordinary, everyday, hardworking class Americans were really hit by this, no matter what industry you were in. I mean, it's a laundry list of industries that were impacted. Those folks had trouble paying bills. They maybe had to take on debt. They had to figure out what they were going to do in regards to schooling for their children. Times were very, very tough. And so I think that there's that divide where people forget that there are other people in America who have experienced this differently. And I think we need to have more conversations about that, because there are frustrations that are kind of boiling over. And it doesn't mean that everybody is, or the people on the other side are crazy or fanatical or anti-vaxxers, or they think COVID is a hoax. It's just that they've had a really tough go. And some empathy there from the folks in my demographic would go a long way in terms of having an adult conversation about what's necessary moving forward and how we build ourselves out of this.
And then in terms of, the pandemic and, coronavirus, this inability to look beyond, what some figures are saying and, putting and beating a dead horse with, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year now, without looking at the entire spectrum of, the science, right? I mean, the science is settled. We continue to hear, those common terms, on a day-to-day basis, yet they leave out large swaths of the conversation that would, maybe lead you to a different idea or a different, belief on how we're handling this situation. It seems to be, mask, no mask, vaccinated or unvaccinated. It doesn't have anything to do with the millions of people who caught COVID and, studies that are showing around the world about, herd immunity and all this sort of stuff. Kind of brings us to, the final topic this morning, because it garnered a lot of attention the other day when, the popular podcaster, the most popular podcaster around, Joe Rogan, interjects with the CNN lead medical expert, Sanjay Gupta, about how CNN framed his recovery from COVID, basically calling him a Looney Tune because, he let the people know what, many have not, exposed over the course of the last, few months, that there are alternatives. There are, different sorts of remedies that could help mitigate some of these symptoms. And, he was taken to the woodshed because, he went out on social media and let his viewers know, his experience. But his experience, didn't go, walk the company line. So, he was torn apart, in the mainstream media.
Yeah, so I mean, what's interesting with Joe is I disagree with his stance on whether vaccines are useful or not. The way CNN treated him was quite unfair, because they were basically saying that he was taking horse dewormer, which is not the case. That particular drug obviously can be used in animals, but it's a veterinarian drug. He was prescribed a human drug by a human doctor. And so, I mean, the conversation between the two was really fascinating because, yes, Sanjay had to kind of walk the line of saying that CNN should not have reported that in that way, which is, I mean, for a major outlet like that to have one of their senior guys kind of openly admit that was unfair is, I mean, that's a good sign. These are the types of conversations we want to see in a polarized America, because people often talk past each other. And then the flip side of that is Dr. Gupta was able to counter some of the claims that Joe had made or was making in regards to how likely a vaccinated person is to get COVID, if they're likely to give it to someone else, and break down some of those numbers. And so I look at conversations like this as the way forward, where people who disagree with each other can sit at a table for 3 hours, have an uninterrupted conversation, be able to call each other out maybe on some of their nonsense. But at the end of the day, leave it and say, okay, well, we see where we maybe still disagree. We've established some common ground. And at the very least, we've established that the person on the other side of the table isn't some sort of monster. They just might be wrong. And that's okay. We can have those types of conversations. And so I really appreciated it because unfortunately, we don't have much of that these days.
Well, do you think that sort of verbal, face-to-face sort of discussion, it goes a lot further than say sitting behind your computer screen and sending out hot takes on Twitter day to day, right? I mean, all right, it's entertaining for you and distracts you and takes you into a world that you don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. But if you're able to sit across a table with one another, hash it out, get uncomfortable, that ends up showcasing the fact that sort of communication is the way we should be striving towards, and not the keyboard warrior style that has become so prevalent these days.
Exactly. I mean, people will tweet things, and I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of this. I certainly have. People will tweet things at you on Twitter that they would never say to you if you were sitting across a dinner table from them. And so when you have a Rogan Gupta sit down, it kind of highlights maybe we have more in common than we thought. Maybe we can actually civilly disagree. Maybe we don't have to just ridicule each other to get more retweets. And so, it is nice to have that humanizing aspect in terms of political discourse and disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, that is what, a lot of us believe, this sort of nation was founded on, and how we have made so much progress over the course of 240 years for that ability to sit down in a room, hash those things out, and at the end of the day, still be able to shake hands and, part ways, even if you disagree on, even 80% of the stuff. Let's build off the commonalities we have and move those issues forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
David, it's a pleasure as always, and thanks for pinch hitting. You do a great job when you and Yael get together on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, and we look forward to tomorrow's program.
Thank you very much, Joe. I really appreciate it.
That's David Clement, once again, with the Consumer Choice Center. Check out their latest piece. One size fits all doesn't always fit it all. At consumerchoicecenter.org. Yael, David will be back tomorrow, 10 o'clock Saturday morning, with their latest edition of the Consumer Choice Radio Show, right here on the Big Talker FM.
This is Chad Adams, president of Red Wolf Broadcasting, proud to announce our fall lineup starting October of 2021. From 7 to 10 a.m., we have Joe Catanacci covering all of the local issues of the day and looking at some of the national things that are happening. Then Mike Gallagher, one of America's longest-running talk show hosts, from 10 to noon. From noon to 3 p.m., we have the up-and-coming Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. You're going to love that show. And then one of the toughest hosts in America, Dana Lash, from 3 to 6 p.m. So join us each and every day, Monday through Friday, here on the Big Talker FM.
Constructive Solutions is the name of my construction company. It's called Constructive Solutions because I focus on solving what it is my customers need and want, and there's always a way to get the job done. We're in our 25th year serving our community. We handle all types of home improvements and repairs, literally from your crawl space to your roof, as well as commercial alterations. We're a small, family-owned and operated business. My wife works in the office, and my son Dylan is my right and left-hand man. Combined, we have over 70 years of experience. Dylan and I face every project or challenge that comes our way. I learned my trade from my father, who was a builder until his eyesight failed him. I was showing some employees a picture of my father working on the second-story eaves of his home, and I said, "Can you believe he's 82 and up on a homemade scaffold?" They said, "He's 82? I replied, "Yes, and he's blind. Don't ever tell me it can't be done." So if you want quality, professional service for your home or business, give us a call at 910-231-6020 or go to markmarkley.com.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Those aren't fireworks. The gang violence here in Wilmington has got to be stopped. As your city councilman, I'll give our law enforcement agencies the direction and support they need to make our streets, ball fields, and schools safe. While doing that, I'll also keep our small businesses open so they can do what they do best, work hard and be profitable. I'm Luke Waddell, I'm running for city council, and I ask for your vote. Paid for by the committee to elect Luke Waddell.
To wrap it up this morning, we have a few minutes between now and the top of the hour. If you want to jump in at 910-299-7535. Did I hear temperatures in the mid-80s today? Well, we wrap up here. I think my wife's fairly busy, so I've got daddy daycare. We're headed out to the beach. No question. Beach, a little lunch, a little ice cream, and back home for a nap before we hit the tube later on tonight. 11:15 once again this evening. Over at WWAY, you can catch all the high school football highlights with their sports anchor Jake and myself as part of the 5th quarter. Heck, we knocked it out of the park last week. Homecoming for a lot of the area high schools. We had a last-second Hail Mary pass out in Tabor City for South Columbus that I provided the highlights for in the commentary. That was, a lot of fun, particularly when I get to write the script. Sometimes they give me sort of the generic what you read over the teleprompter, but I like to spice it up, and by 11 o'clock, I'm all spiced up from an entire day of Daddy Daycare hosting the most listened to, entertaining, and informative program anywhere around southeastern North Carolina. So tonight, if you can make it or put it on DVR, 11:15 this evening, the latest edition of the 5th quarter. And as we move into the weekend, things are going to cool down a bit, it looks. We've got a random football weekend off because, Coastal Carolina was idle this week, and we've got a midweek game coming up. We'll be headed up to Boone on Wednesday morning after the show to partake in the broadcast Wednesday night. I'll probably sleep in the mountains Wednesday night and make my way back down to the coast at some point Thursday ahead of next week's Freedom Friday broadcast. I believe Chad Adams will be filling in next Thursday. So just make note of that as we approach the weekend. And another great broadcast week that starts on Monday with our friend Ray Nothstein and our partners over at WWAY. 11:15 this evening, tube time with the 5th quarter and some of the highlights from across another great night of high school football throughout the region. And as we wrap it up, again, early voting is underway for the municipal elections here locally. November 2nd is Election Day. We've got time still. If you want to find out more about the candidates, who they are, what their platform is, We try to highlight all of the issues that we face here locally, whether it be in Wilmington, New Hanover County, and throughout the 3-county area where we broadcast to each and every morning here on the Big Talker FM. Hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and we'll be back better than ever just after 7 o'clock Monday morning right here on the Big Talker FM.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.